มันเขียนว่า start streaming แล้วมันไม่ขึ้นอ่ะเช็คให้หน่อยได้ปะ
ใช้ง่ายดี
แบ็คกราวด์กลับด้านแบบที่
ใช่ก็ถ้าเพจเราเป็น mirror ก็กลับด้านคือพอมันออกมาแล้วถ้ามัน mirror ให้มันก็จะตรงด้านแต่ถ้าพี่พัดถ้า setting พี่พัดเป็นถ้าไม่ mirror เดี๋ยวผมส่งอีกอันหนึ่งให้แล้วเรา frame
สวัสดีครับพี่แพท
สวัสดีครับพี่ว่าพี่ใส่ไม่ได้แน่เลยพี่ไม่ได้ล็อกอินไว้
อ๋อครับ
It's fine
อันนี้เห็น presentation สไลด์กันไหม
เห็นครับ
โอเคอันนี้เห็น presentation สไลด์กันไหมตอนนี้ presentation ที่เห็นเป็นหน้าอะไรเป็นหน้าไหน
Mentimeter
Mentira Used it before
such a dead-end thing
อยู่ในเลือดในสายเลือดวันนี้พี่แพทย์ทำงานที่ไหน
วันนี้นะครับพี่อยู่วนอยู่แถวสุขุมวิทนี่แหละครับ
Work on Saturday แล้ว
It's work every day ครับ
พี่แพทรู้จักสปีกเกอร์คนไหนบ้างอ่ะ
ทุกคนเลยครับ
ทุกคนเลย
พี่ดูมาแล้วพี่มุกเอิญไปทำเขาเพราะว่าพี่ฝากพี่เอิญดูให้พี่มุกตอนนั้นกับกายกับพี่เอิญนะทั้งพี่กายพี่เอิญสนิทกับพี่นานแล้ว
เราคือพี่ยังแบบสนิทอยู่ป่ะหรือว่าไม่ได้เจอนานแล้ว
เจอกันเรื่อยๆอ่ะแต่กายเขาอยู่อังกฤษ We're all in the same fantasy league
What league ครับ
พี่กายจะในคอล
โอ้พี่กาย
ที่ทัด
Say hi นะครับ
How are you, Patrick?
I'm goodครับ How are you?
All good, all good.
นี่มาฝังตั้งแต่แรกเลยเนี่ย
มาซัพพอร์ตอยู่ไงเอา
เอาแล้ว
แย่ละ
เปิดเลย I think we can just wait for 5 more minutes and we can get started.
Hey guys.
Hi พี่เนทสวัสดีครับ
Hello ได้ยินไหมคะเนี่ย
ได้ยินครับ we probably gonna wait around another 2 minutes and we're gonna probably start ครับได้ยินไหมครับ
ค่ะได้ยินค่ะ
โอเคครับ How are you ครับพี่เนท
Hello ได้ยินไหม
ได้ยินครับ How are you ครับ
Okay. I'm good. I'm just like very on the go today because it's a Saturday, so forgive me for the bad light.
No worries. To my understanding, you prefer in English, right?
Yes. Do you know how many people are joining?
I think the sign up are like over 50 people, but I think we're gonna probably start like very soon because I think people will just dropping in their interested session. Maybe one more minute. เดี๋ยวมีพี่แพทริกด้วย just to tell you both first, I might say some introduction first, and we can go into that session. นะครับ Just to open the event. Can you guys see on the presentation? Is there anything on the presentation? The slide?
Yep, can see it.
Yeah, I can see the opening screen.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We're at around 19 people. I think we could start. Right. โอเคครับก็welcome ทุกคนนะครับแล้ว hello แล้วก็ welcome ทุกคนเข้าสู่ Alumni Talk 2023 นะครับซึ่งจัดโดย TSIN แล้วก็อีเวนต์เนี่ยก็ host by TSIN กับ collaboration กับ Alumni จาก Imperial แล้วก็ LSE แล้วก็ต้องขอบคุณมากๆที่ทุกคนเนี่ยtake opportunity นี้แล้วก็ไว้ในเชื่อใจให้ TSIN เนี่ยช่วยคุณในเรื่อง journey ใน career launch นะครับแล้ว talk เนี่ยเราหวังว่าใน talk นี้เราเองให้คุณเนี่ยได้ explore scope ของ career ที่ interested แล้วก็ได้ expand perspective แล้วก็ได้เรียนรู้กับ career journey ของ alumni ที่ก็เป็น role model ของหลายๆคน hopefully ถ้ามี any doubts อะไรก็ได้solve ใน this talk แล้วก็ talk เนี่ยเรามีหลายๆคนที่ได้ alumni หลายๆคนที่น่าสนใจเข้ามามากๆเลยครับก็ถึงแม้จะมี background ที่แตกต่างกันเนี่ยแต่ผมก็เชื่อว่าalumniแต่ละคนที่เราเชิญมาเนี่ยก็มี knowledge แล้วก็มี experience เนี่ยที่ค่อนข้างแน่นแล้วก็สามารถแชร์ได้แล้วก็มีประโยชน์มากกับน้องๆ talk ที่ start วันนี้เนี่ยก็จะเริ่มต้นด้วยbusiness หรือว่า ish tech ish ตั้งแต่ 6:30 นถึงประมาณ 1:30 นซึ่งเราก็มีโอกาสได้ต้อนรับTikToker แล้วก็ co-founder ของ Era Generation แล้วก็ also a serial entrepreneur แล้วก็ real estate developer ในกรุงเทพนะครับตามด้วยsection ที่เป็น finance เริ่มต้นที่ 1:30 นซึ่งเราก็มีโอกาสได้พี่ DevOps Lead ที่ Lloyds Bank มาแล้วก็ได้ IB Analyst จาก JP Morgan แล้วก็จบด้วย Consulting ซึ่งเราก็มีโอกาสได้รับรุ่นพี่ที่น่ารักจาก McKinsey แล้วก็ BCG ครับใช่ The format ของ Talk เนี่ยก็จะเป็น40 นาที Talk แล้วก็มี Q&A ตอนสุดท้ายประมาณ20 นาทีนะครับก็ feel free เลยว่าถ้าอยากจะถามอะไรอย่างเงี้ยก็ใช้โค้ดแล้วเข้าไปใน Mentimeter ใช้โค้ดตามนี้ได้เลยแล้วก็ drop question เข้ามาตอนช่วง Q&A หรือว่าถ้าอยากจะยกมือขึ้นแล้วก็ unmute แล้วก็ถามเอง discuss กับพี่ๆก็ยินดีมากๆเลยครับโอเคครับ without any further ado นะครับก็ขอ start this session เลยนะครับก็ welcome พี่ Net and พี่ Patrick มากๆนะครับ to the session today for business and tech นะครับพี่ Net นะครับพี่ Patrick
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับพี่ Net unmute หรือยังครับ
ค่ะได้ยินไหมเนี่ย
ได้ยินครับได้ยินแล้ว Okay, to soft launch the session, I think I'd like to hear a bit about what you guys study and what do you do right now. Why don't we start with Peanut Cup?
Okay, so hi guys. Like I said, some join. Sorry for the bad lighting. I'm very on the go, Tani. Very out and about. But really glad to be here. Super excited to hear that you guys are very interested in all these like different career paths, which is great. Also really funny that you introduced me as a founder and TikToker. So I never thought about myself in that way. But okay, a little bit about my experience at LSE, what I studied and what that meant. So I did my master's there in social innovation and entrepreneurship because I was super interested in the way that business models can be used for sustainable good. And I didn't actually go in thinking I was going to start my own thing or anything like that at all. And I think anyone who's kind of in the entrepreneurship space, you actually don't go in thinking that, but you just realize that there's an idea that you stumbled upon and you just have to pursue it. And I think that's really the thing that makes people kind of go forward and like have that passion because you find something that you're like a bit obsessed with, you know? And so I met my co-founder at LSE in the same program, and it just so happened that we were very, very similar in our ideas for what we wanted to do. And so for anyone who doesn't know, I'm the co-founder of Isla, and we developed an application called Ally, which is an application that turns local venues into safe spaces. And the application, if you're thinking about it in startup terms, kind of fits into the HR tech or ed tech vertical, meaning that we're focused on training and we're software, sort of like any SaaS service, but there's a very strong social impact angle to it. And so for me, like that's pretty accurate to what I studied at LSE. And I know a lot of people might not have that experience, but I think you don't always need to study what you're going to go do eventually. But in my case, it happened that it was 100% what I did in the end. So that's a little bit about me and the background at LSE.
Wow, that's very insightful too as well, and continue to do a lot. Thank you, Kap. And so, P. Patrick, could you tell us a bit what you study and what you do right now?
Sure, and thanks for T for inviting and TSIN for hosting. So a bit about me as a background. I think we both went to Patna, both Inet and me, a bit younger. But after Patna, I went to school in the UK for a bit, and then I did my bachelor's in design engineering at Imperial, and then a master's in finance at Imperial Business School as well. So currently, I'm the managing partner of KW Capital and the chief commercial officer at WHA KW, which is, we're basically a real estate private equity firm based here in Bangkok. We solely focus on development of commercial real estate across a number of asset classes, whether that's office, in retail, in healthcare, in data centers and more. And we're a relatively young business. We're about, coming up to about 3 years. And we currently have about 5 to 6 projects in central Bangkok across Sukhumvit and Sathorn. So I'll keep that very brief and I'll let the ask the questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. For the questions, I actually got some of the questions specifically for each one of you, and also I got some comparative questions which will be asked for both of you. But along the way, I'll say which question is for who. And I think I would like to start with PNet, which you started your own business and it is a startup right now, and it's very interesting that like it's taking the direction it's taking right now. So my question is, Pinet, what signs prompt you to co-found a startup with your friends? Like, was it the market trends? Was it the demand that you were unexpected, or was it very personal to you? What's the reason for starting this startup?
I'm going to do the lame answer and say all of them because, you know, at its core, like Isla is sitting on the foundations of like gender equality, which is something that I'm super passionate about. But I also saw like a market opportunity for this because the idea really came during COVID when, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but domestic abuse rates were increasing globally because, you know, when people are trapped at home, this kind of leads to a lot of gender-based violence. And so what happened is we saw that like there needed to be more safe spaces in public places, whether that's like supermarkets or like restaurants or cafes. And so that's kind of where the idea for Ally came about. And so I would say it's all of the things, and it's one of the reasons that we're like still going today is because like sadly, this social problem is still an issue that persists in almost every country that we go to. So we actually launched in London. We're headquartered and registered in London, and we expanded to Berlin last year. And then this year we expanded to Bangkok as well to do our Asia headquarters, launching with some pretty cool names like Sansiri and like Hyatt Regency to make sure that we are covering a lot of ground and a lot of public spaces. So excited to see where this takes shape in Thailand.
Well, firstly, congratulations for the expansion. It's very impressive.นะครับ and it's very interesting that like all the reasons like they'll combine to really give you the motivation to push what you're doing. Talking about kickstarting something, Patrick, how do you search for and like identify the business opportunity? Like, is there like, do you look at whether there's a feasible market? Like, how do you find that out?
Sure, I think, I'll take that step back slightly. So I started my first business about 10 years ago in corporate sourcing, and gone through a number of startups in a number of industries, whether that's e-commerce or recruitment. And every time, which, I think trying to validate a new business, it's always looking at the market and understanding your customers, collecting as much data as possible on the market itself and learning about who your customers are and what the demand and the whole landscape is like. You look at your competitors, you look at the barriers to entry. And personally, I'm a very big believer in going into certain niches where you are more protected from competition, where you can differentiate and look at underserved markets across various industries. And I've done that throughout the years through a number of startups and companies which I've been involved in. And I guess one of the things which I always stress as well is to probably follow where your passions are. A business is not easy. You'll run into problems moving forward. It's the same with every business. And if you run out of your passion, sometimes that becomes much more challenging. So I think across a lot of the businesses which I've done, it's always been something which I'm particularly passionate about. And then, wanting to learn and learn as fast as possible about the market and start doing a feasibility study of the entire market. I think it's very important when you go into a new market to talk to a lot of people in the industry to understand who the players are and where the opportunities lie within the market.
It's very interesting. So you talk to a lot of people, certainly. And one thing that I really like what you said is the learn a lot, unlearn and relearn, which is very, I think that's a very important factor, like to really move fast in the market today. And you both talk about passion, and I think I want to come back to that word passion, because you got TikTok as well. So I'm curious. I guess because you're so famous on TikTok as well, and you constantly posting the content on there, that must be your passion as well. I want to know. What's the process of making each content, and like, would you say that your content is kind of niche in a way, and what's the concept behind of doing this TikTok? I want to know whether this actually helps you with achieving the mission of your startup as well.
I'm sorry, I just cannot stop laughing that you're calling me famous. I really can't. So, do you guys want to know the truth? The truth is, like, I started TikTok as a joke. Like, I did not take this seriously. And to be honest, like, I think that's probably one of the reasons it's done so well, is because the platform kind of needs you to be authentic, right? And it just needs you to be yourself. And unlike Instagram, I feel like it's so curated now, and like nobody's really posting anything, and anything that's posted is like filtered and like Photoshopped, all that good stuff. But I think with TikTok, the platform really allows you to just like be as real as possible. And to answer your question, like, do I think it's like a niche audience, and how has that helped me with the business? So as you guys probably know, since we're all like LSE here at Imperial, like the reason that it grew so much is because I really was like focusing on all this like the content, right? And like all these international school students and stuff. And I think that that resonated with a lot of people, just because like ultimately I'm just making fun of myself too, right? It's not like I'm making fun of like everyone else. It's a lot of people ask me like, where do you get the ideas for your content? And I'm like, well, it's basically my life. So it's not that hard to kind of think about where like the funny, ridiculous moments are. And obviously I think we're all quite privileged in like our education. So that's something to like never forget. And, growing that presence eventually, in the beginning, I actually never combined the platform with talking about work or ILA, but as a TikTok account kind of grew, I started to talk a lot more about the and kind of tips and careers and stuff. And a lot of people message me for like CV reviews or things to do with like, you know, starting up their own business and stuff like that. And I think like it goes back to what I was saying, which is it's all quite authentic because it's really just me and my life. So there's nothing that super difficult or anything that's like very, very curated, because it's really just me and the different sides of my life. And so now they're kind of just blending, and it's really cool that I get to talk about just funny things that are going on in like in their life, but also just things that are happening in the startup world as well, and like especially feminism and combining that with all the things that I'm interested in. So that's kind of where things ended up, and I'm quite happy with it.
So basically, it's like you both of this, the Ella and also the app, the Ally app, and also the TikTok is kind of like your passion. What's the key of it at the center, the heart of it is your passion, and that's what's taking you to like do all of these. And I like the keyword that you just said right now about being very authentic. I think that's a very key to making content nowadays. Yeah. I want to come back to Patrick as well. You were mentioning about you were collecting a lot of data. I really like that, you know, industry today is very data driven, and so I want to know, because you're an entrepreneur as well. After you establish the market and industry that you want to go to, after knowing all data and stuff, how do you build it up, and like how do you know who to go to? What are the key metrics that you're looking for your business to grow? And do you think of the exit strategy?
Well, that's quite an interesting question. I think there's no one answer fit all answer to be straight. I think every business, every industry is different in a number of ways. I think obviously, like I said, a lot of data gathering is great to begin with, and then obviously doing some more in-depth analysis of the whole industry as a whole. There's multiple of business frameworks which you would look at. I won't bore you with a business school lecture. But things like 4 to 5 forces are very useful tools to actually look at, right? They talk about looking at the competition in the industry, looking at new entrants and the threat of new entrants, and looking at, if you can be substituted, and the power you have in that industry versus the suppliers and the buyers. So at least you understand, what sort of industry you're going in, what sort of margins you're looking at, and what you need to grow to be able to achieve your goals. So I think it does vary across a number of industries. I think, like you mentioned, who to talk to is, of course, something, I think, especially in Thailand, it might be different in Europe. I think talking to people really helps opening doors. And I'm always a big fan of, just go for it. It's always, let's create a minimum viable product to begin with, and really build something up and going into the market to really test if there actually is a market and validating that thesis you had from the start. Nothing on paper is the same at the end of the day, right? You go into the market, you will get customer feedback, you'll get supplier feedback, and you'll start to understand the market more. And that's when, I think the really good businesses are able to pivot, are able to adapt to new markets, to new challenges, and in this world of a very fast evolving market across industries, right? You look at some of the big tech industries or even traditional industries, the landscape is changing incredibly fast with digital innovation and the greater globalization of the world, full stop. There's now this sort of borderless trade between countries, especially in ASEAN, if you're in this region. So it does become much more challenging. So I think you have to go in there with a mindset that you're ready to adapt, ready to cater to your customer demands, and really understand your customer and build that relationship moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense. But the point that you're saying that there's no one size fits all, I think that's really the key part. There's no like success recipe that you can just take it and apply it, right?
And just going back to your metrics, I think obviously there's no proven sort of success metrics to look at in that sense. A lot of startups look at obviously cost of acquisition of the actual client or the customer, and then their lifetime value, right? And then how that works, and basically, your business is basically the arbitrage between those two numbers effectively. Of course, it depends on complete business. I think what I always have to say is be as lean as possible. I'm a very big fan of lean models. You'll see that when the going gets tough, the lean startups do the best. You see a lot of the big startups having to shave a lot of people out because they've basically grown too fast, or too many people, and those overheads come around to bite in a bad market. So it's always, do things as cheap as possible to begin with, and then control that side as well, because at the end of the day, you have to be profitable.
Yeah, and you're a very big fan of the real sector as well. So no mention of crypto.
I took a different path, right? I think when you go into finance, you have effectively two routes. You go in the corporate world or you go in the trading world. I've always been in the corporate finance world, fundamentals sort of guy. It really depends. Again, I'm not saying this is the right way or the wrong way. There's a lot of friends who are very, very successful across the trading space and the crypto space. But I'm always a sort of a very sort of structured person in terms of, things go up or you make profit from structuring things well. Deals get done from good structures and good foundations. So that's also very important.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot, which I think is a very good point to look at the matrix, like Porter's 5 forces, and also basically the business is just looking like fundamentally it's looking at the total lifetime value of a customer, and then see like arbitrage with the cost of acquisition of the customer, right? And if that unit economic is profitable, then you're on a good track.
I think both Pina and I are similar in, at the end of the day, we want to obviously grow something quite sustainable, right? And obviously, living within your means to begin with and controlling that is obviously a big contributor to that overall picture.
Yeah, I think all of these kind of looking at fundamentally having a good plan of like what was the path that you initially thought, and like plan a strategy for it to grow. So I want to come back to Pinet about having the plan as well. I think it's very interesting that you're not only doing the startup and you have the Ally app, but you have quite a strong social presence as well. And then don't argue me on that, because every time I told you that the Pinet is coming to Alumni Talk, they'll be like, "Oh, Pinet the talker." So I think you're being too humble on that. But my question was it a part of the plan that you want to leverage one on another? Like, how do both entities, both your startup and your TikTok, like grow? How do they like help each other grow, and how do you think is shaping what you're doing today?
I think I actually think they're quite separate, to be honest, in my opinion, because one is a bit more serious and one is a bit silly, to be honest. And so for me, like when I really started out doing ILA, there's so many stakeholders I had to talk to. So anyone who's interested in like social innovation knows that it's not just like the public sector, it's private sectors, it's like intergovernmental organizations. So we work a lot with like UN Women, for instance, as well. And so, when I'm like having these meetings with like big people from like the government, high level like CEOs and stuff like that, it's quite serious, and there's like a different way that you need to approach things. And I think when, like I said, going back to TikTok, it's the complete opposite. It's like when you can be silly, it's when you can be a bit more authentic. And obviously, when I'm doing my job, there's a very corporate angle to it, even though it's very startup-y. So whether it's like pitching to investors, talking to angels, all these things, like there's a way to like frame yourself, right? And there's a way to talk about things with whoever you're interacting with. But I think with TikTok, like the audience is quite different. And it's something that like I've really been able to enjoy kind of building and growing. In the beginning, it was a lot of English content, but you can't deny that like we're based in Thailand, right? And so one of the things is like how do you cater to a Thai audience as well, and like what are the kind of things that they're interested in. But of course, the more that I'm growing the platform, like I hope to use it to educate more people who are following me to know about Isla and the Ally app, of course, but bigger than that is to become more aware of things in society. And I think that is something that I'm like looking towards taking the platform in that direction. So I think like there will be some overlap in the future, but the way it started out is completely different, and kind of the way that I utilized it was for very different purposes. But that could definitely change in the future.
Wow. It's very interesting that one is both are purely for passion, but both operate very separately, and then you manage to, to grow both. Like, and then how do you, what's the tip for managing your time?
I'm actually looking for an assistant right now because I'm so stressed. There's a lot of things happening. I'm actually launching 2 initiatives, like 2 projects in addition to what I'm doing right now. So stay tuned for that. But I think because this chat is about entrepreneurship, right? I think anyone who's in this headspace knows that you're constantly creating new things and you like to do new things all the time. And I think, again, that's one thing that differentiates somebody who wants to have their own business versus someone who might be in a corporate, for instance, is that you're constantly looking for something new to do, not because you're easily bored, but because you just have so many ideas and you just like to see these ideas come to life. So that's something that I think is what a lot of entrepreneurs have in common. And I think when you're focusing on just lots of different things, it kind of breeds room for even more innovation and creativity. So who knows what other businesses are going to come out of me in the next few years.
That's true. So listener นะครับ Pinet is looking for assistant นะครับ so if you want to be assistant to Pinet, apply, reach out to her นะครับ Okay. Next question is for both of you, but it's about networking. So obviously, both of you, I think, are entrepreneurs who must constantly talk and connect to people, and communication is probably the key thing, right? So I want to ask a bit about advice, for people, how do you make the most out of networking? How do you network as well? But for Pinet, I think I want to focus more on because you start off doing the app, which is kind of techie thing. I want to know how do you network to find the right partners. And for P. Patrick, I want to know about how do you make the most of your networking and utilizing the development of land in Bangkok. Where do we start with P. Patrick?
I think, I go back and say that networking is probably one of the most important things, especially in Thailand. And I think, you never know who you'll meet the next day or who might reach out. I think there's obviously 2 sort of key networking items, or there's a few networking items, but one would be, would highly recommend to go to industry events, right? Things which are relevant to your industry or things which you're passionate about. You never know who you'll meet or what connections you'll make or what opportunities you would be able to open. I think, B and Frame are good examples of that. They've been to a number of these events, also at Grab, whether it's Tech Sauce or whatever it is, but, obviously that's going to help a lot to TSIN and their future initiatives and your personal futures as well. So I think from that point of view, networking is paramount. I'm a very big fan of using LinkedIn. I think it is very, very efficient to get to the people you need, and then I use that quite significantly in my daily life. And a lot of the connections which we have and customers we have are a lot of them actually have come through LinkedIn or through personal connections as well.
So it was the networking event and through LinkedIn and online as well, because you have to sell yourself and then advertise yourself out there so people can reach you.
I think so. I go to a lot of industry events, whether it's in real estate or in hospitality. Meet a lot of people. Might not be people who you'll work with immediately, but you really never know in the future if you might cross paths again. So that's something important to bear in mind. I think there's especially for a fresh grad, I think there's nothing to be shy about or to be regretful about. Just go in there, speak to people. I'm sure a lot of people who are in the industry would love to speak to the younger generation to understand your thoughts as well and see and share their wisdom of their experiences with you.
Thank you, Kap. What about Pinet? How do you see networking, and how do you find partner in tech for your ambitious idea?
I'm going to keep it short because it's quite similar to Patrick's, but like, I fucking hate networking. Like, it's the worst thing ever, but it's so mandatory, guys. Like, it's so mandatory. It doesn't matter if you're like having your own startup or you're in a corporate job. I think like this is something that a lot of people overlook. Like, you can have such an amazing resume, but ultimately it's about who you know and the people that you're able to connect with on a level that's beyond just like sending a LinkedIn like message. You know what I mean? Like, how do you like turn cold introductions into warm introductions into like something meaningful? And again, to second Patrick, like, I have gotten so many clients and business connections through meeting people, through conferences, again, which I hate, as well as going to all these sort of like little small breakfast clubs or like things that are like women in tech, for instance, which is sort of the space that I'm in, right? And so it's really, really crucial to just put yourself out there. And again, because we are talking about the business and tech section right now, right? I think, to be honest, it's even more crucial for people who have their own businesses because, like, ultimately, you are the face of your business, right? And so you need to like really put yourself out there. And you know, even if you're an introvert, even if you don't like socializing, like that's really one of the things that goes hand in hand with growing your business is like having your presence out there. And so this is something that you can definitely work on and practice. There's a lot of techniques and stuff like that. And it's something I'm actually really passionate about, even though I hate it, because I think it's so key to growing your business.
Yeah, and I would like to expand on that as well about networking. Obviously, you guys both are probably some alumni that a lot of students might come to ask advice from, and obviously there's a lot of companies who come to maybe want to partner with you, work with you, or collaborate on some other projects, right? I want to know what are your expectations to the people who reach out to you, and then do you have any advice for connecting with the professionals or the alumni? Can we start with Peanut?
I actually have this thing, which I don't know what is the technological term, but for me, networking is always like two-way. So what I mean by that is, if somebody wants something from me, what am I getting back from them? And it seems so very transactional, which, to be honest, it probably is. But imagine this, like if some random person asks me for something, what do I owe them? Like, am I obligated to help you? Most likely, like, that person isn't going to help you if you don't know them. But if you can give them something, add value in some way or some shape or whatever, they're more likely to help you. And I'm going to give you a very firm example. So I get so many LinkedIn messages from people, whether it's like asking for connections, asking for help, asking for stuff. And I don't know these people at all, right? So I'm like, why would I help you? Like, I have so many other things to do. But the people that I actually reply to and like do connect with are people who are like taking their time to really go into what I think is valuable. So for instance, one person I recently helped who I didn't even know, who connected with me on LinkedIn, was like, hi Peanut, like I would love to talk to you about like the social innovation field. I've been like doing some research on like gender violence apps and I wanted to share my insights. So that's an example of like, they're able to give me some information that might be useful to me, but they also want to get something from me. And so I like connected back with her and had a little bit of a chat. But if somebody out of the blue connects with me and is like, hi, I need this, thanks. But I don't even know you, like, right? Like, why would I help you? And honestly, this is something so many people face because like, you have to really think about it. Like, people way more important than me are getting like hundreds of LinkedIn connections every day asking for stuff like this. So you got to be like, how do I stand out and how can I add value to this person so that they want to help me back?
I think I totally agree with you, and we like your point that networking is not just not one way, right? It's transactional, and it's about what value you can give to them and what they can give value to you. It's about being mutually beneficial in this relationship, right? So I want to come back to P. Patrick as well. What do you expect from the people who reach out to you, and whether more or less you agree with what Peanut said?
Yeah, I think I agree with most of and echo what Peanut has said. I think obviously networking isn't quite always that transactional. I think the way you put it might be a bit too transactional, but yeah, I think I'll add on to that in terms of and touch on the alumni side of things. I'm a very big believer in networking through alumni groups and helping people who are younger than me go through what I've gone through in the past, and then setting up. So don't underestimate the value of Imperial Alumni Soccer or LSC or whoever it is, especially in your post-uni life.
Yes.
The number of you who will come back to work in Thailand. I know so many people who have found a job here through the alumni network. A very high percentage, to be honest, of graduates is each year who come through. Because as alumni of the same university, you understand the caliber of the students you get and who will become your teammates and colleagues. So I think definitely that's a very, very big point. I'm a very big supporter of the alumni network and always happy to help people who need advice on whether it's work or uni or whatnot. So from an expectation point of view, I think, again, it really depends. I think I don't expect too much in terms of when it comes to helping someone through. I think it's that there isn't too much to expect to begin with. So I think it's really open-minded in that sense. I think I keep very open mind, see where we can help, and then if it's not too much of a hassle, we'll always be very open to help. Obviously, some people are a bit more different. Like you say, some people are very transactional and want this and that and very specific in what they want. Obviously, you do become a bit more cautious with transactional people in general.
Yeah, very good point. And I guess TSIN is probably one of the examples who reached out to Peanut and Patrick to ask for help as well. So we hope we provide some values to you guys as well. So thank you for that.
I mean, honestly, what have we learned here? We've learned that Patrick is way nicer than me.
We've learned that Peanut needs an assistant, so if anyone wants to sign up, you know who to contact.
Exactly. TikTok net_512. All right. Before we move on to the Q&A, I have last question for you guys, which is for you guys to give us at least one advice or two, if you have, about how would you advise someone who's starting off, maybe doing startup or business, especially in Thailand. Maybe I want to start with Peanut first up.
My favorite piece of advice about anyone wanting to start their own business is be consistent and just keep going, because anybody can have a good idea. And I think even a normal, boring idea can turn into an excellent business if you are consistent and you put in the work. You could have an amazing idea, but if you don't put in the work and you're not consistent, that's not going to go anywhere. So I think my main thing is just keep going, even if it's super hard, which it will be. Anyone who wants to do startups, the first year is just brutal, but it gets better. And if you keep going, I think you can always get results in some shape or form.
It's very good. So the main stack is sorry.
No, darling.
I was going to say the main message from Peanut is I think it's very valuable. About consistency is key. So what's your advice, P. Patrick?
I think I'll start with sort of my overarching advice, which I give everyone in general, and then I'll go maybe a few tips of Thailand specifically. Thailand is a special situation in general. Number one advice is don't be scared of starting something. I think a lot of people who come to me who are out of university, you always undervalue yourselves in terms of, I don't have the experience, I don't have the connections, I don't have the know-how. I think I'm always a very big believer, especially out of uni, if you have an idea, or you think you have an idea, just do it, just try it, create an MVP, go talk to people with this idea, because you never know what that will bring. And if you keep that to yourself, you end up regretting that, because, I'm a very big believer that the perfect age to really start is straight out of uni. You haven't really climbed a ladder anywhere, you're starting fresh, you have a fresh perspective on things. And you don't really have that sort of baggage to take along with you. So if you do have an idea out of school, just go out and do it. You never know what will happen. You might be super successful, you might not be. And I think there is no need to be scared of failure. I think multiple people, pretty much everyone who's been successful has failed multiple times in their lives, whether it's launching a new product, launching a new business, or whatever it is. I think failure is a very big part of entrepreneurship. It's a very big part of starting a business. And sometimes you've just got to have some trial and error in it. So, you can do as much research as you want on a customer until you ring them up and actually ask them what they want. You'll never really know what they actually want. So my advice is, just do it. Reach out to a lot of people, create a network, ask for advice, always seek to learn. I think, keep an open mind. Things can change. Ideas need to be flexible. There's no sort of one size fit all. There's no sort of plan which goes from A to Z exactly, right? There will be bumps along the way. There'll be different turns we'll have to make, and there'll be different compromises we'll have to make. So that's probably the overarching advice. In terms of Thailand, I think the first thing is don't underestimate Thailand. I know a lot of people who say, I want to stay in Europe, I want to stay in the US, there's more funding, there's more availability. The interesting thing about Thailand is a growing, developing market. We're not a mature, saturated market like some of these European markets or in the US. And there's a lot of opportunities still, in my own opinion, in Thailand, whether it's in Bangkok, whether it's outside of Bangkok, and across different industries. But also, Thailand is culturally a very different market to the UK or the US. The way people work is very different. A lot of people who come back here obviously have huge culture shocks going into a Thai company, working with Thai people. So I think the advice here is be realistic. In Thai, people say lok sawai or whatever it is. I think there is no utopian world in business. So starting a startup, things are dirty, things are nasty. It is not going to be a road full of roses. So, be realistic, be ready to compromise with things, be ready to pivot. I think I'm a very big believer in hard work. I believe in, hard work equals output, and it pays off eventually. In most cases, I'm not a big believer in luck. If your business is solely relying on luck, I think, you're going to be in trouble, right? I think well-structured things, well-planned, strong, crafted business models are always, at the end of the day, the winners. At the end of the day, and like they always say, it's a cliche saying, but if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That really is. But would encourage a lot of you to come back to Thailand. There's plenty of things to do around here. Thailand in ASEAN, I still believe, is probably the most interesting market, and especially with China +1 becoming a much bigger global theme in the next few years, Thailand will stand to benefit from that.
Listening from both of you, really emphasize the word, just go and do it. Failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And really love that. ได้ยินแล้วก็รู้สึกแอบกลัวๆแล้วก็ encourage at the same time นะครับ Okay, I think thank you guys very much for the very informative talk just now, and I think we like to move on to the Q&A part. And yes, if any audience have questions, I think I might prioritize the people that like to raise their hand up first and ask a question. Kun, just now, someone raise your hand up. Can you raise up again? Or you can unmute and then ask the question. Yeah, Nithit, right.
What was the most difficult thing that you faced creating your own startup initially, and how did you overcome them?
To understand, the question is for both of them, right?
Yeah, the question is for both of you guys.
Okay, who would like to go first? พี่แพทริกแล้วกัน
I can't think of an answer for this, to be honest. I'd say I firefight every day. You know, you run into a problem every single day, and you're out there to solve problem by problem. I think I'll go back in sort of the general advice in terms of problem solving. I think, again, you know, expect to solve problems, and you know, sometimes we'll see a very, very big issue or problem come up, but I'm always a big believer there's always a solution, there's always a compromise, and you always have to break this huge problem you have down into much more logical and easy to execute steps. In terms of big challenge, let me think. If Jeanette wants to go in first, please go for it. I've answered the question upside down.
Jeanette, anything you would like to add?
Hardest thing, I think the hardest thing is like putting yourself out there. In a way, it's sort of like social media and like TikTok, right? It's when you put out content, or in this case, when you put out your startup idea, there's going to be so much criticism, so many people telling you like it's going to fail, or telling you like why it's bad here. And the honest truth is you're just going to have to grow thick skin to listen to it. You're going to have to like listen to people criticize you left and right. And that's why it comes back to the point of passion being super important, because you're going to have to listen to all this stuff from other people, but ultimately, how much do you still want to keep going, right? Because there are people I know who like crumble at the first instance of like criticism. And if that's you, startups are probably not the best path for you because you're going to like face so much rejection, so much criticism, just a lot of negative things. So you yourself have to like stay very grounded and stay very firm in like your idea and keep going. Again, comes back to what I was saying about being consistent.
Yeah, I completely agree with Pinet on that as well. I think especially in this market in Thailand, you know, you'll be disrupting a traditional market or disrupting some other market. Everyone in there will probably doubt you to some extent and probably not take you that seriously. So again, you know, it's just keep pushing, you keep working, and you stick, and like Pinet keeps saying, you know, be very consistent. You know, I'm a very, very big believer in hard work. There's no other substitute to that. There's no shortcut. There's no quick way, quick win. You know, I think a lot of people, our generation, talk about quick wins. They want to make money quickly. They want to do this and that. I'm a very big believer in what goes up quickly will come down quickly. And you've seen some of these spectacular crashes post-COVID.
Especially in crypto.
In traditional businesses as well. You look at people like WeWork in my industry, or Selena, or a number of the tech startups which had crazy valuations during COVID.
ครับ. So I hope that answers your question, more or less. So I'd like to tell the audience as well, if you have any more questions, you can go into bensy.com and type in this code and just fill in your question.นะครับ. Okay, coming to the board, I see the question was probably for Pinet. What was the thought process behind Friends of Friends dating event?
So for anyone who doesn't know, like I recently launched sort of like a new, I don't even know if it's a business, but it's a new venture, let's just say, called Friends of Friends, which is like the anti-dating app, if you will. And it was super successful because we had like hundreds of applications apply for the first event, and we had to cut down to like only 40 due to like size of the venue. But I just went through the data because I asked people to do like feedback after the event, and it's insane how like simple, such a simple concept did really well. And I think like the process behind that was literally just from talking to people and talking to friends. I don't know who's been back in Thailand recently, but you know, there's this whole concept of like kon kui, which is probably not new to the world, but I just felt like a lot of Thai people were really missing that deeper connection. And so, through talking to lots of people, which in a way is market research, right? You realize that there was this sort of need in the market, and we just tested it out with this first event. So in a way, you could say this first event was like sort of a MVP, just to see if this had traction to scale at all. And I think it showed us that it did. And so we're actually planning the second event right now. So if anyone is single, you should keep an eye out for the next event.
The MC is single.
What do you mean? What are you talking about? I think I really like the concept of Peanut trying to prove that there's a minimum viable product in the market right now. And I think coming back to this is a very good point. And I guess a lot of people can be proof for you that situationship kind of thing is what's going on in this era. So and
I add about the MVP point, right? I think a lot of people have this misconception of what MVP actually is. I think the big word here is minimum. A lot of people who come towards, have an idea, they come to me and say, we need $100,000, $500,000, $1 million for an MVP. That isn't an MVP, right? I think the MVP is something as simple as possible to validate your thesis or your idea. That could literally be done in a PowerPoint presentation. That could be an experiment of some sort. That could be really anything. It isn't building a whole platform, investing, hiring developers to build some fancy website or app. All you need is to validate that. And like I keep saying, we go back to this completely lean model, right? You want to control your spending. A lot of early stage startups fail because they can't control their spending. And at the end of the day, that spirals. Hiring a lot of people at the end of the day will be a very huge burden on the P&L on a monthly basis. So really, it is just validating the market in the easiest possible way. In a lot of cases, it is completely free. It is, an MVP could actually cost nothing with the exception of your effort and your knowledge to create.
Yeah, I see, Peanut. I think you were going to add something to that point about MVP.
No, I was just definitely agreeing. Like an MVP, honestly, the cheaper it is, the faster you get it out. Like that's a good MVP. If you're asking for millions of dollars, what are you doing?
It's a good point. We have this question from the audience as well. Could you talk about a valuable opportunity you capitalized in university to learn more about entrepreneurship? So I guess the question is kind of like, what resources, how can you be resourceful inside a university to kind of pursue entrepreneurship, I guess?
I'll go first on this one because there's a very specific one actually. So if you're LSE on here, so my co-founder and I, we sort of incubated the startup at LSE, and we went through the LSE entrepreneurship department. So if you guys are LSE, you might have heard of LSE Generate, which is, in my opinion, extremely helpful as a resource. We went through their funding competition, which they have every year, and we actually won. So got some money to like start up as a little grant to like kickstart like the first iteration of Ally as well there. So for LSE, if anyone is LSE in here, it's extremely, like, I would say you should definitely tap into the LSE Generate network. They have like talks, they have innovation tracks, they have funding competitions, which you can get feedback on and win money. And there's a lot of connections there to like other startup founders as well, who are also LSE alumni.
Mm-hmm.
I'll step in with the Imperial view. Went to one university my whole life, so pretty much the only view I have. But obviously, this varies massively towards different universities. I think at Imperial, I co-directed something called the Imperial Enterprise Lab Innovation Pitch and Innovation Competition, which was a pitching competition and a chance to meet a lot of VCs. We had a number of VCs who came through the door. I think Imperial as a name is always synonymous with innovation, with they're always at the forefront of creating something new, and that attracts a lot of money, a lot of interest in general. I think there's a number of programs through Imperial, through the Imperial Enterprise Lab, through things like venture Catalyst Channel to the BCC and funding through Imperial Innovations. But I think there's also a lot more around the UK, around London, and also a lot in Thailand. There's a lot of independent organizations, companies, banks, and government organizations who have programs, who have incubators which you can join depending on which industry, right? For example, in Thailand, Thai Union has a big food-based incubator for startups in the food space. You have people like AAS who obviously have a much more digital focus. You have people like PTT and PTT Oil and Retail who have a much more sort of more oil and gas focus in that sense. So, I think, again, it goes back to the networking point. You never know who you'll meet, and it's just taking the opportunities when they come your way.
That's very good question. Good point. One last question before we end this session. I think C is one of the very interesting question. I think any of you can start on this as well, because the question is, a lot of people emphasize on the idea of having a mentor, and what's your opinion on this? And I want to add to this as well, not just your opinion on this, but how do you find a mentor if you had one? Maybe Peanut, do you want to start?
Sure. What is your opinion on this? I 100% agree, but what I think is you shouldn't have just one mentor. You should have multiple mentors, because there's never going to be one person who can advise you on every single thing, right? It's like a best friend. Like, you don't go to your best friend. Well, maybe you do, but you don't go to, like, there's different friends for different things, right? And so in my case, I have a mentor who is very focused on, like, the tech aspect of things. I have a mentor who's very focused on perhaps, like, the VC side of things. And then I have a mentor who's very much focused on, like, the sustainable, like, social innovation side of stuff. And this is sort of like the way that I think about my business. So I'm like, these are the three key parts of what it means to have a business like Ally. And so these are the three people that I need to help advise me. And so I think that's kind of how you should break it down. And some people take it even further and have like a mentor for like their personal life. So like, things to do with mental health, for instance, which I think is so important when you're doing a startup, because it's going to really take a mental toll on you, because you need to have thick skin, right? So I think just ask yourself, what do you need, and break it down, and then see like how you can start building relationships with people who can give those things to you. So the mentor, some of it actually comes from networking, right? So one of my mentors is my professor at LSE, who actually sits on our board of directors right now. Another mentor of mine right now is someone I met through networking, and then he ended up being an investor in our company, and he also is on our board of advisors. So it's really, really like by chance, and it's again about putting yourself out there. So make sure you're talking to lots of people and staying curious always.
Patrick, do you like to add on? What?
Yeah, I think I'll take a slightly different view to this. I think, the question is, a lot of people emphasize on the idea of having a mentor. I think the first point is, I think it's good to have, but it's not a must. That means that, don't waste your time searching for that mentor and stopping you from actually going out there and doing something. I think you will find your mentors and your inspiration along the way as you meet more people. I agree with Pinette. I don't believe in the one mentor fits all solution. A business today is not just a one industry or simple business model business. You will need advice from a number of experts across a number of industries as you grow. It's always great to take advice from people. I think one of the most important things I've learned all the way through is to listen and to ask for advice from people. Everyone has a different experience. Like, going back to the growing a business question, there is no one way to grow a business. Everyone has grown their business, all the successful entrepreneurs, in slightly different ways, and there's a lot to learn from each person's journey. So really, I think, like I said, it's good to have. I don't think it's a one size fits all, but I think the number one thing is to focus on actually creating a business, developing your idea, validating it, creating an MVP, rather than beginning from searching for a mentor or searching for capital. The two things which people love to do is I need money and I need someone to guide me. I think you've got to be realistic and say that in a business you have yourself and you basically have yourself. So that's sort of my take on this.
Thank you very much, Kap. I think we're coming to the end of the session now. So the session has been very insightful and very, full of knowledge. And me personally, who's interested in starting my own business as well, this is very encouraging and a bit frightening at the same time as well. So before we end this, Pinet and P. Patrick, if we or any of the now would like to get in touch with you, like how would we do that? Pinet.
Contrary to what I just said, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. But I think my email, one of you guys has it, and feel free to pass that around as well. I'm quite responsive on email.
Patrick?
Likewise, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, but if you reach out to any of your TSIN friends, they'll bombard me with messages somehow.
Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. It's been a very good session, and I think I learned a lot, and I think a lot of all the audience learned a lot as well, and it's been very inspiring nonetheless. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your time for coming. Both of you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, guys.
And feel free to stay and for another session as well, and yeah, ขอบคุณมากๆครับ And for the audience ครับ if you like contact กับพี่ๆทั้งสองก็ติดต่อ TSIN มาได้เลย แล้วก็ I would really encourage you guys to join TSIN Circle, which is the line group chat that we pass around exclusive content and also this kind of information as well ครับ Okay, so I'll hand on over to the next session, which is finance, and Mai will be hosting this event นะครับ Okay.
Hi everyone. Hi ค่ะพี่กาย
Hello, Alumni. How are you, Hub?
I'm good ค่ะ How are you?
I'm good as well, Hub. Excited for this opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much for participating. Hello ค่ะพี่วิว
Hi. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
You too, and thank you for joining. So, I think we can get started now. And thank you so much, both of you, for joining this session. And we are very glad to have both of you here. I would like to start off with maybe you to introduce yourself a bit, tell us a bit about your education background, and what are your current role, and a bit about your current role. Thank you. Pika, do you want to start first?
Oh, yeah, sure. You want to put my language, okay.
Yes,
So,
we can take it in English.
my name is Guy. I'm currently a DevOps engineering lead at Lloyds Banking Group. I've previously was a software engineer, so I was working on the Lloyds mobile banking application that some of you might have, but now I've moved on to a different project. And I went to LC. I studied the MSc Finance degree, and before that, I studied at the University of Bristol. My high school, I went to Harrow, the same school as Alumni, so that's it for me.
I'm currently an investment banking analyst at JP Morgan. Has been a little over a year since I started. And prior to that, I was a student at Imperial College London studying material science and engineering. So shifting from engineering to finance.
Okay, so thank you so much. And what you two have in common is that you both came from an engineering background coming into finance. So building on top of that, I would like to ask you guys first of what prompted you to continue your education in finance after graduating from engineering, and how did you integrate your financial side as well as your engineering side into your current role at Lloyds?
So 3 years ago, I was an engineer in the sales and trading lab. And my job as an engineer was to create a trading application that would allow the traders to price and book interest rate swaps. And each week, I would get numerous requests from the traders, add this feature, build that, but I wouldn't really understand the business justification to why they want me to build a certain feature to this trading application. And one day, I was fortunate enough to be able to speak to the CFO, William Chalmers, and I asked him, which one would be better for my career, a CFA or a Master's in Finance? And he recommended that I go for the Master's in Finance. And that night, I looked online, and there were a few unis, Imperial Business School, LBS. But LSE's Master's in Finance course stood out for two main reasons. The first one was that it was an executive Master's in Finance, and so it was a part-time course, and so I could keep my full-time job whilst working on this qualification. But secondly, being an executive Master's in Finance program meant that the students or my classmates would be senior executives from the UK's top companies. Take, for example, my classmates are VPs from Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Citibank, and funnily enough, the MD or managing director of my company, the head of quant, was also my classmate. So it gave me the opportunity to learn and also do lots of networking. And so that's why I decided to enroll in LSE's Masters in Finance program. And was it a good decision? Yes, so I'm now able to understand the Financial Times, and I have a much better understanding of the products that my bank offers. And whenever required, I'm able to have meaningful conversations with the traders.
Thank you. Hi, it's very interesting, and from the sound of it, it helps you a lot with your engineering role in Lloyd. Yeah. And how about Imperial? How did your engineering background help you in your current role as an IB analyst at JP Morgan now?
Sure. So maybe a bit different from PKI. My career wasn't as clear cut. So the reason I chose engineering was because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And at that time, it seemed like people who had decent grades went into that field. And throughout university, I did a few internships. Well, one internship that was directly relevant to my degree. And I think that maybe it wasn't quite a good fit. It wasn't really what I was looking to do. And still, I slowly transitioned into more business-oriented roles. So I did an internship in business development as and then I did another one in market research. And it seemed slightly better aligned, but still not quite the best fit that I like. But must say that the skills I gained from engineering, so kind of what people like to say about engineers having very good logical thought processes or being able to take and digest information quickly, those are definitely useful throughout the internships. But I think even at the end of my degree, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So I was taking quite the stereotypical route that someone who might have graduated from finance or engineering would take. So I was looking for generous roles, which would be management consulting or investment banking. And I just happened to be lucky enough to land a role in investment banking. And I think investment banking, you don't need to be the absolute brightest person. I think the skill sets you gain and the level of kind of the baseline that you have from engineering is sufficient for you to do the job. But it would require a lot of outside learning. So nothing I learned was too relevant. Maybe a few Excel skills here and there, but nothing business. I had to do a lot of reading up on corporate finance, practice a lot on networking, which discussed briefly in the previous session is particularly important for investment banking recruiting. To get an interview, it requires you to go to coffee chats and such. But yeah, just need to be able to digest information quickly, be comfortable with numbers, and kind of be okay with the grunt work and hours.
I see. As you said, you just recently came from an engineering background into investment banking, the financial field, and it has been your first year doing work. So we would like to know, how did you find your first year as an associate, and was this the same as your expectations? Like, were there any challenges that you never expect before going into IB?
Sure. So I'm not quite an associate yet. I'm still a first year analyst. I have like 3 more years to go before I get to that stage. But so like coming into investment banking, I had like, I believed I had the right mindset. So I knew it was gonna be long hours. I was gonna be someone else's like expendable kind of grunt work labor kind of dude. But I think actually getting into the job and spending the hours was like a bit of a shock for me still. Like coming from like a university student, you're used to having like free time, lots of free time, meeting your friends, and not doing anything. All besides when the workload is required to do like studying on the weekends. But like coming in, it was like even like you kind of need to prove yourself in the first few weeks because seniors tend to, well, in my personal experience, seems to judge you quite quickly, and then they'll kind of gravitate to different analysts. So they'll naturally want to use analysts who are more capable, more competent. Which, to be fair, I had like quite a steep learning curve to overcome initially, and I think in terms of the work, it was a lot of Excel work, not too much modeling since like the Thailand office is coverage. So we do a lot of work with the Singapore office, and we do our own execution, but the modeling work stream tends to be with the Singapore office. In terms of the hours, you can expect anywhere between 80 to 100, or maybe a little bit more, and it's not too unusual to work weekends. So like I mentioned before, the key skill sets are like being able to digest numbers, being able to take the hours.
Sounds like an IB job to me. I would like to move on to Kigai then. On the other hand, you're not doing an IB role, but doing a software engineer role at a bank instead. So I think it's like a role where people haven't heard or like doesn't really have an idea of what it is. So could you explain about like your current role a bit? Like what are your responsibilities? And how about what are the software development life cycle within your organization? And can you explain, can you give us some examples about the projects you have been working on?
That's a long one. So many years ago, I was a software engineer, and that was before I became a DevOps engineering lead. Each sprint, which lasts around 2 weeks, I'd be assigned a ticket to work on, and this might include, building the Lloyd's mobile banking app that I was talking about, or building certain websites. But now that I'm a DevOps engineering lead, my responsibilities is much more different. I've now been asked to deliver a much larger piece of work, an OKR, or deliver the roadmap. So the mindset required to do each task is so different to when I was a software engineer. Now the question becomes, how do I manage my team and help them to deliver this massive piece of work? So my leadership style is that I tend to lead from the front. I wouldn't necessarily assign people work that I wouldn't personally do it myself. And I've also learned that in my role as an engineering lead that it's very difficult to get huge pieces of work done. It's just me alone. I needed to learn and delegate work to my team and to trust my engineers to get the job done. But at the same time, I have to be able to be there to support them, but not micromanage. So it's all about finding this balance, And once I managed to find this, we began delivering more. So I think that's the main difference between, my job as a software engineer and my current role as a DevOps engineering lead. So in terms of my previous projects, I've worked on the Lloyd's mobile banking app. Right now, I'm working on a massive website that allows testing to happen because, we don't want to ship products full of bugs to our customers. We want to make sure that it's working as expected. So those are the 2 big projects that I have been working on.
Oh, that sounds great and uses both of your engineering and finance knowledge, like of course in your role. So as we can see that in like working in the financial industries is very fast paced and a lot of things are going on. Moving back to Kirill again, did your experience at Imperial shape your work life at JP? Did it prepare you well for this role? Or if you could go back to your final year in university, what would you do different?
I think maybe circling back to you guys' point a bit as well. Like he mentioned working as a team and like being able to delegate work. I think that's very crucial in like the banking line of work. Essentially, I feel like the different projects we get is just one big group project, which I can't speak for people coming in from finance, but I do for engineering. That's quite commonplace. You'll be assigned work to work like collaboratively with people with lots of different types of people. And I think to some extent, the people who come into this field, you do run into them occasionally, but like they tend to be they take a lot of ownership, so there won't be too many kind of people who you need to do most of the work. And in terms of how Imperial shaped my experience, I think I have to give credit to like the different societies that I joined. Those were particularly helpful in the initial stages of like interview prep and like learning just giving some more insight and context into how like investment bankers actually work. Like you definitely benefit a lot from joining those societies. Maybe like how I could have spent my final year differently. I spent a lot of time worrying about job applications and like stressing out about everything, not getting enough sleep. I think it would have been like a nicer experience to kind of just enjoy myself, just relax a little. Everything is gonna be fine. You don't like even. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe if you guys can add onto this later, but I think your first job is definitely important, but it's not the end all be all. You can still eventually climb up to the firm position that you want, and like some doors do close and some first jobs do matter, but in the end, there's lots of different paths you can take, different ways to climb.
Very good advice for final year students like me going into final year as well. So I would like to ask Pika, you work like abroad, so you work in the UK. I would like to know, are there any like differences between working in the UK and in Thailand, as you have previously worked at a financial firm in Thailand as well? Could you do some compare and yeah.
So I had the privilege of working in Thailand's top financial institutions. More recently, I was in the hedge fund department at Patarat Securities. And I think the main difference between working in a Thai company and a UK company is the colleagues that you work with. For example, in Thai companies, you tend to work with Thai colleagues. I know there are a few exceptions like Agoda, but most of your colleagues are Thai. But in the UK, your colleagues come from all over the world. And now the challenge becomes, how can I best communicate with my international colleagues? How do I understand the idiosyncrasies? Because there are times when I was like, why is my colleague always late? Why can't they just say no directly? It's because there's no one size fits all communication when it comes to speaking with people from all over the world. And the way that I tackled this issue was simply to spend more time with them. So my colleagues, my team, are not actually based in London. They're based in a town called Halifax, which is close to Leeds, north of England. And so each month I would take a train journey to visit my colleagues in in Halifax, and we would have dinner there. And during dinner, I would be able to observe how they act, and I would be able to understand what's important to them. For example, family, the culture of sharing, etc. And over time, I was able to develop a very strong bond with my international colleagues. And this made our working experience much more pleasant. So I think that's the main difference between working in Thai financial institutions and at Lloyds Banking Group.
Oh, that sounds great. So you actually need to meet with them, talk to them to understand each other better. Following up on that, before applying to Lloyd's, you obviously didn't know your colleagues. So how did you find the fit interviews, and what would you recommend for like the skills and like qualities us as final year students should prepare for like an application to a UK company?
What's the first part of the question about the culture fit, right? Specifically, okay. So my answer, we tailor it to Lloyd's Banking Group. I think JP Morgan looks for different types of candidates. So at Lloyd's, we accept applicants from all sorts of backgrounds. For example, if you want to apply to the corporate banking graduate scheme or a data scientist graduate scheme, then you don't have to study those subjects at uni to be able to apply. But what would be helpful is if you have a look at our values. There's around 3-4 of them, and once you've had a look at those values, you then try to come up with examples from your experience of you having demonstrated those values. And then you will know whether this company is the right fit for you or not. So to reiterate what I've just said, we don't look for applicants from a certain background. You can just apply as long as you've got the passion for it. But what's more important is that you make sure that this company is right for you. And the way you do that is you check our values and see if our values resonate with you or not. If they do, perfect. Please apply. Our grad schemes are opening in September. If not, then there's hundreds of other banks waiting for you. Yeah.
Okay, so to prepare for the fit interview, make sure to do some research, check out the values, and make sure to show that values during your interview.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And back to Imperial, talking about application. For those who have no idea what investment banking is, not like no idea, but not for sure, like what is investment banking, and some minimal background in finance. However, they are interested in breaking into IB. Where should they start? And do you have any resources or like top tips that you could give them?
Yeah, so maybe for specifically investment banking, I think the best thing would be to do, the very first thing is to get hold of like the recruiting timeline. So this can vary from like different banks, but they're generally clustered together. I think recently Goldman and Morgan Stanley for investment banking have like shifted their recruiting timeline slightly earlier. But I think for JP Morgan, I think it's still like deadline is around like December, interviews start around like January, February, and then they'll like find out the results in like March, April. So like get hold of those timelines, and you can see like people posting this on like LinkedIn, so you can kind of follow them, or if you're acquainted with anyone in finance stock or IB stock, you can ask for these dates from them as well. Typically they're in like spreadsheet format. Maybe like if I could provide some context into what investment banking is. So we typically deal with only institutional corporate clients, and well, like there are different types of transactions. Like the most recent one that we've done you might have seen on the news, the Bangchak and ESO merger and the True and DTech merger. So that's M&A, mergers and acquisitions. Like this typically, it's quite a popular market in Thailand. And we also do IPOs, so initial public offerings, where we bring a company into the stock market. And since JP Morgan is kind of a global firm, we typically do listings in the Thailand Stock Exchange, but we also do listings in Singapore, United States, Hong Kong. But these are like far and few between. And in terms of preparing for the interview, there are plenty of resources online. So like the very basics would be you would need to know how to construct a DCF. You can watch YouTube, practice building these yourselves, or you can all know how to value different companies. So typically we use DCF, transaction comps, and transaction multiples. So these are kind of the very main transactions that we use, and there are quite a lot of resources online, like Wall Street Finance and corporate, I think Financial Edge. This might be paid, I think, but need to check on that. And there's less emphasis on fit interviews, so this might be different from the software or like the middle/back office of banking. There's like they seem to take more into account the technical interview, so need to prep for those, and they can be quite difficult as well. Typically, there are like 3 rounds, and first round is with like just kind of with like an associate level. Second round is still with an associate level. They'll be asking mainly technical questions, and third round is typically with like MD. MD is like kind of the highest title that you can achieve in banking, and these are like typically more fit questions, brain teasers type of interviews. So, and even before that, to kind of get to the level where you'll be able to get an interview, you would need to kind of network a lot. So LinkedIn kind of need to be a bit thick-skinned. I was pretty shy. I didn't really want to talk to people on LinkedIn. I was like, why do I need to talk to these people? But yeah, you really need to reach out to people asking for like advice on, what's the culture of this firm like? Preferably someone who has left, since they'll be able to give a more objective, less filtered view. Reach out to people, ask, and then like another aspect of that is to reach out to people who are still working there. Ask for coffee chats. So like you can name drop, like if you feel like it's going well, you can name drop a few people, like ask them about like what product they're covering and things like that. But sorry, a bit long-winded, but hopefully that answers the question.
Full answer. And I would like to ask more about the coffee chat and networking, as you've mentioned before. So how did you get yourself to start networking? And have you been attending coffee chats? And if yes, could you tell us about like one of the most memorable coffee chats you have had?
Sure. So I didn't join investment banking directly. I kind of went into this program called the Asia Analyst Development Program in Thailand. So this is kind of the management trainee graduate program that JP Morgan in Thailand offers. And then my first rotation was in investment banking, and I wanted like a full-time position. So I'm in like a slightly different position from most people, where like I have already worked with the seniors who I would be having coffee chats with, so that's slightly less awkward. But maybe I can speak about the very first, like the first few coffee chats that I had that I arranged to get into the program. So in my like second internship in business development, I knew one of the seniors in like the firm that I was an intern at, and she was able to kind of connect me directly with like one of the sales and trading people. So and like I arranged a coffee chat with that person, and they were talking about how like what sales and trading was. At that point I was so unsure about what kind of industry I wanted to go into. So like for those maybe who are not too familiar with banking, like for front office roles, there are like investment banking, sales and trading, which is further divided into like sales and trading. You have asset management, wealth management, relationship management. Those are kind of like the ones that people know of or think of. And my first one was the sales and trading, and she was able to kind of connect me further with like the investment banking people, and further to like recruiters, and like you kind of have to like leverage your coffee chats to kind of lead into more meetings with different people. And in terms of how memorable things were, I think they were like a bit standard. Maybe like it was kind of fulfilling that the people I met along the way, I ended up meeting actually in office, like working with them. So that was quite nice. But in terms of like anything surprising, can't think of anything that was like particularly stood out for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, I really like the point where like one networking will always lead to the other. Taking it back to the guy, but still continuing on the role of networking, as you have said, you've been networking a lot within Lloyd's with other colleagues. So how do you initiate like these network sessions, and how important were networking in like your career path? And do you have any tips for an effective networking?
I think Lloyd's graduate scheme is very different from JP Morgan Thailand's. So, for example, in our cohort, we've got around 40 to 50 grads, whereas in JP Morgan Thailand, I think it's a much smaller number. Is that right, Ryu? Around like 5, 6 students?
Yeah. So my cohort, there were like 3 people. Most
Just
recently,
3, yeah?
there were, 4 people.
Yeah. And so, having a large cohort kind of helps. We can do our own networking. But I think what's helped me in my career is networking outside of Lloyd's. So in London, we've got this Thai tech community in which I am the co-president. So whenever we've got a Thai person coming to the UK to perform a software engineering role, for example, in companies like Google, Amazon, Meta, we add them into this group, and we would have monthly meetings. And I think that's a really good networking opportunity for Thai people working in London. And here's how it's helped me in my career so far. So in March, on top of my engineering lead role responsibilities, I was asked to become a product owner. So literally a mini CEO looking after a product. And one of the members in this Thai tech community was the chief product officer for one of the startups in the UK. And so instead of a coffee chat, we had a wine chat. I went to a pub that's close to where she lived, and we talked about her experiences, what are the key skills required to really excel in this role of a product owner. And she also gave me lots of book recommendations. So I think joining a community really helps. But on top of that, many universities, definitely LSE, offers this mentoring scheme. For example, in LSE, this has been supported by the student union. I know this because I am a mentor for LSE and also an industrial mentor for the University of Bristol. These mentoring schemes allow students to connect with alumni professionals who are working in the UK, and they are able to provide students with lots of, career advice, etc. So that's another good place to look at if you want to do some networking.
That's your networking with the Thai technology community is very interesting. Could you tell us a bit more on that, of like how it started? Did you contact them? Did they contact you? And what were the keys to making it such like a successful connection until now?
This is kind of where we go off the formal rails. So it initially started with a group of 5 friends. We were all software engineers. I was obviously the youngest, and it's the world is really small nowadays. So whenever we've got a friend coming from Thailand who's working in Meta, Google, or Amazon, then we would drag them into the group, and we would try to have monthly meetings in places like Taito, all the bars, and that creates a really safe environment to have meaningful conversations. Conversations get way more interesting after you've had some alcohol, and that's how we managed to grow as a community. We started off with 5, now we've almost got 100 people. Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So like a wine chat might be better than a coffee chat sometimes.
Maybe. Depends on the industry. I can't see this happening for finance, but maybe for tech, because it's less formal.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm bringing it back to preparing for application. So every time that you network or ask for advice, you probably heard some "what are the key skills?" question. But I would like to know how both of you, how do you make use of that? How do you turn key skills into something that really benefit you and helps you to like get a job that you are currently doing or to improve yourself in your career right now? Imperial, do you want to start first?
Sure. So I briefly covered this in my previous answer. I think for these kind of popular posts like graduate jobs, they are pretty clear cut. There are lots of precedents that you can rely on. So, like for example, like let's say for investment banking, I mentioned, or like typically it's a bit different for Thailand, but typically there are like 3, 4, 5 rounds of interviews. Like, these tend to be mostly technical, with like fit being more important when you get to the end, but the technical side of things is the most important thing in these interviews. So I need to prep those questions. In terms of an interview, I think might be a bit outdated, but the resource I used was 100 investment banking questions. Those takes you through like all like a very I think this is useful outside of banking as well. They take you through all like the different behavioral fit interviews, and I think one of the key messages I got from that resource was that kind of actually understand the question. So like the very typical, tell me about like a weakness. If you're not really, it's not really a weakness question. It's about asking you, how have you improved based on like something that you looked at, and like that kind of thing. And in terms of technical interview questions, those are the very first thing is like basic. You need to know how the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statements, how those link together. That's a pretty common standard question as well. And like questions leading on from that could include, what happens? What is the function? What happens to let's say EBITDA if something changes in like the cash flow statement? So you need to kind of have like a relatively, you don't need to be a whiz, but you need to be able to like understand and answer those questions. And like, what are Barra betas? What's WACC? How would you calculate this and that? Yeah.
Thank you. So like for IB, technical skills are quite important and you should be working on it. How about P-Guy? Whenever that you have this key skills conversation with whether it being your friends or your mentor, how do you take like these key skills you've gained from the conversation onwards? Do you went back and reflect on yourself, or what do you do when you have a list of key skills you were told to have for doing any task or have to pursue any role?
Yeah, sure. So to be able to get a software engineering job, you need to be able to code. And most of the conversations I have with people in tech is, you need to learn this language, you need to learn that language, blah, blah, blah. But it all boils down to, what are you going to do with this language? You know, so whenever people ask me, how can I get started with coding? I ask them, what do you want to build? And then you work from there. For example, if you want to build a website, okay, that kind of boils down to a few languages that you need to work on. So whenever I get advice from people, I need to go back and reflect, okay, how is this going to help me achieve what I want? So that's my way of thinking. Yeah. And to add on Real's response, I think LSE offers LSE gives access to Wall Street Prep. They definitely did for my course. And in the website, there's this red book called the Investment Banking Interview Guide. It's got 1,000 interview questions on topics like accounting, valuation, M&A, LBO. So I think that's another good resource for those who want to go into IB. And your university might also already offer you with this access. Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. I didn't know before. I'll check it out for sure after the session. Yeah. Okay, on to the last question before going to the Q&A. For both of you, so you both work in the banking industry, fast-paced, high-stake, and highly regulated. For you personally, do you feel that the work is demanding? What is the commitment and expectations as someone working in a position like you? And with that, what are your rewards or challenges that you have experienced along the way? I think we can start with
Real? Ruby, you want to go first?
Yes, sure. So let's like start off with like commitment. I think going into IB, you have to accept that your life will not be yours for a while. But yeah, you will be at the whim of someone else. So like some of my friends will see me I always have a backpack with me with a laptop inside. And like sometimes when I'm having like doing something with like friends, family, I'll have to put it up. Maybe it's like something as dull as like, oh, please pull this research paper and send it to me. Or it might be something more, which is more time consuming. Let's say like, oh, I have like a meeting with this client tomorrow, prepare some briefing materials, prepare like a company, like briefing overview for like this person. And then you need to get started working right away. And sadly, it's like, if you're in like another different job, let's say like management consulting, I understand, like not sure how true this is, but their weekends tend to be pretty well protected. So like but in IB, you typically need to work weekends. So there's like this thing called protected weekends where you need to apply. So every month you'll get like one slot of protected weekends where you can apply and no one will assign you up. But like I think it gets better as you climb. But then I still see like senior people, so like career progressions, typically analyst, associate, vice president, executive director, and managing director. The higher you go, the less replaceable that you are. So even though like you're not doing like moving logos around or like doing like monitoring, you're still like on call like 24/7, I think. So like no matter how senior you go, your work probably gets more chill. You spend less time in the office, but the commitment is always there. You're always like need to be ready to work. And yeah, I think as long as you're okay with that, then you're good to go.
Guy, what are the commitments you have to make?
I can totally resonate with what Ryu just said. When I was working in Patara, I asked one of the MDs, I think she was like in investment banking. No, she was actually in private wealth management, which isn't as bad as IB. So I asked her about work-life balance, and she immediately told me that she doesn't believe in work-life balance. She believes in work-life integration. At that moment, I knew work-life balance was going to be bad at Patara. So, yeah, this 9 to 5 does not really exist in the financial industry. What's important is that you do whatever's required to get the job done, but you also need to be able to take care of yourself, because what you don't want to experience is burnout. Once you've experienced burnout, you will stop working for a week because you need to recover, right? So you have to find ways to make it work. You have to make time for your family, for your friends, for the people that matter. But also you need to be able to deliver what's required from the clients, from the stakeholders. Yeah, it's all about integrating work and life together. It's not really a balance. It's you that need to find a way to make it work. Yeah.
Talking about that, I think Pika has like this good work-life balance, especially seeing his hashtag guys read. If you guys haven't heard of it, please check it out on his Instagram. He has a lot of like good books review on that, and we couldn't end this session before going into the Q&A without asking Pika, what are your top 3 books recommendations that you would recommend us right now?
Yeah, so when I was an analyst engineer, I had to work like 12-hour days, and nowadays I'm an engineering lead. I just have to assign work to people, and my team would complain and be like, "Oh, guys, just assign work to us and go read books and play golf." So it does get easier as you progress up the corporate ladder. So my top 3 book recommendations, and you might have already heard of some of them. Number 1 is Mindset by Carol Dweck, and it's all about the growth mindset and why it's important to have one. My second book recommendation is called The Anatomy of Peace by the Arbinger Institute. This book will teach you how to be kind and how to treat people like people. And the third book is a very popular one, but I think it's one of the best memoirs that I've ever read. It's Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who's the founder of Nike. This book will teach you about the importance of hard work and also the challenges of working with international suppliers. So those are my top 3 recommendations. And obviously, if you would like more recommendations, please head over to my Instagram, guy.i. I've got almost 200 books in my highlight reels, and I'm sure you'll be able to find a book that you like there.
That's very good. I'll put it on my list. And if you guys want to check out more, please visit you guys' Instagram. Okay.
Maybe like if I could like kind of interject and circle back to the point before, the very interesting recommendations. I think for people who are averse to like work, kind of want to be in banking, want like the relatively high pay, there is the markets people who like typically depends on which market you're in, but in Thailand and in most firms, most people that I know, they do work 9 to 6 jobs. They get paid like pretty well, I think, like a little bit less than IB, but it's 9 to 5 intense work hours from like when markets open, but then no weekend work. At the end, you just have to kind of log off. Like I hear that like if you're in office too late, then that's often a problem because then like compliance starts to like have concerns of like why are these people still in office. But yeah, sales and trading for people. Con is that the shelf life tends to be shorter. So like typically like at 40 you're like usually laid off as the younger, faster people are like replacing you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Imperial. So like if you're thinking of going to banking, we have examples here that there are different aspects of banking that you guys could go in and check out the roles that are available and align it with your personal goals. Okay, moving on to the Q&A, we'll prioritize the people who put their hands up here first. You can unmute yourself if you have any question. We'll start with Saran. So, Thi, do you want to ask the question?
Yeah, sure. This is actually question for both of you, Pikai and Imperial as well. Just want to know how do you, because the banking environment, I say it's very fast moving, it's very competitive, right? How do you stay at the edge of the competitiveness? How do you stay like improve yourself every day but still stay sane? You know, that's my question.
Rue, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can. For me, I feel that environment is particularly important, and I think the very best thing about these kind of like maybe like bulge brackets, big companies doesn't have to be like top 3. I think the people who you work with are, well, in my experience, mostly more intelligent than I am. They're much more efficient. They're much better workers, and there's always something that you can learn from them. But at the end of the day, it is like a group project. The end goal is to get something done within, like at a high quality, in the very short time limit, and like you know, it's I don't really have situations where like when it comes to it where people like any like kind of try to take credit, kind of sabotage what you're gonna do, because at the end it's like one cohesive product. But I think environment is the most important thing. It's like where you end up will kind of influence your work ethic, how you think, like the level of thinking that you have.
Cool.
Yep.
So, to remain sane, I play golf, which actually drives me insane. But how do you actually excel in your field? I think you have to be aware of all the advancements that is happening in your field. So you have to read the news that's happening in the industry. And by doing so, you'll be able to predict what's going to happen in 10 years' time, in 5 years' time. As an engineering lead, I have to plan for my team's roadmap. What are we going to deliver this year, next year, and so on? And by keeping myself up to date with all the advancements, all the best practices that's happening in banking, in tech, I'm able to really plan well so that my team is always ahead of the curve. Yeah.
That's a very good one. Yeah, if you are wanting to go into banking, make sure to be aware of what's going on around the world. You can unmute yourself to ask the question. The one with your hand up.
Okay, so how do you think you guys made yourself stand out during the application process?
You can go ahead with maybe take this first. Okay.
I've got LSE on my CV. No. So in tech, it's very important to have a portfolio because, when you go to an interview, it's very competitive nowadays. You've got many people who are able to code and code well. But what made me stand out is that I've got a portfolio of work. So it shows me that in my spare time, I'm building websites. I'm invested in learning about tech. And so they see that, oh, this guy is actually interested in tech. And if he joins our company, he might actually enjoy this type of work. So that is what made me stand out in my applications.
For me, I think there's only so much you can put on the CV that would stand out. Most people will have typical, at least for banking, investment banking, most people will have similar types of internships, similar types of experiences. I think when it comes to it, I mentioned that maybe the fit interview isn't too important, but I think the networking, kind of making a connection with the interviewer, is what makes you stand out. So for example, you might, at the end, you might be in a panel of people, they haven't really introduced themselves, haven't talked too much about themselves. You can kind of make it a two-way kind of thing. Talk to them about who they are and what they do. But again, you need to kind of read the room as well if they're up for that.
I hope that answered the question. So make sure to prepare for your application by knowing what you're applying to. And as the guy said, to do something outside to show that you're interested and enthusiastic outside of academic as well. We also got some questions from our listeners, but if anyone here wants to ask anything, you can put your hand up and unmute yourself. If not,
can I ask Ryu a question?
Yeah, of course.
So Ryu, what advice would you give to university students? If you're looking back at you being a second or third year student, what's the most important thing that you think you needed to hear back then?
Okay. Very, very. Let me think about this. I think there was this one friend who I was pretty close to while I was applying to jobs in different sectors. He was always off at TSQ, at someone's house doing something, whatever. He seemed to be having fun. And every time he see me, he was like, "ทำไมมึงเครียดจังวะมึงเป็นอะไรของมึง?" I think that looking back, it wasn't it made me feel bad about myself because people seem to be having fun. But I think he did have a point. There's stressing is I think it's more difficult to say than do. But stressing about let's say you're preparing for an interview, you're surrounding yourself with the right people who are as driven as you are and as interested in their career as you are. I think you'll be fine. Just keep hustling, keep doing what you want. How about I turn this on its head and ask you, guy, what would you like to hear now and when you are a fresh grad?
You're using the Uno reverse card, right? Okay. So I've got a friend who's a lieutenant. And last month the day before his birthday, we went clay shooting, and we were talking about what it takes to be successful in our fields. And he asked me, Guy, have you heard of the law of attraction before? I was like, of course, yes, I've read The Secret. And he was like, you should use it. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So my friend goes to the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, which is one of the top military schools in the world. For many centuries, they've been producing the top leaders in every field. They've taught kings, commanders, etc. But what's challenging is that every year, each country can only send one student to this academy. And so my friend had to compete with hundreds and hundreds of top military school students from Thailand to get a place at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. And the secret was that every day he would do this visualization exercise. He would visualize himself being at school, doing the training, and winning competitions. And by doing this every single day, he was able to get a place at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. So if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, you must be able to visualize what success looks like. Because if you can't do that, you won't be able to achieve it. There's a quote that I really like from Muhammad Ali, which says, if the mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it. But, visualizing success is not enough. Now that you've done that, you've got a duty and responsibility to yourself that you have to make your dream come true. So that is what I would tell my second or third year uni self. Yeah.
Those are very good answers from both of you, and thank you very much. I do have one question from the Q&A as well on the Google form, and I think it's applicable to both of you. So if I were to go into finance after studying an undergrad in a STEM subject, how should I be preparing myself during these 3 years in university?
Oh.
Does anyone want to start first?
I can do I can do a quick one. So the easiest way to kind of, not the easiest, but like the first step, I think, would be like spring weeks. Those are pretty competitive as well, but at least you have something, like if you manage to get into like one of the banking spring weeks, I think it definitely puts you out, especially from your colleagues in your first, second, third year, who will most likely not having any form of like banking experience. And like going into your second year, kind of, you won't be able, if you're in like a 3-year degree, might be a bit different, where you can possibly land an internship. So best way would be to like get an internship. If not, then do like an internship maybe in Thailand, because in the UK, I might be wrong, but like they don't really offer second year internships for like banking. So like kind of leverage your connections, apply for banking, whatever in Thailand. And then third year, if you want to work abroad, then like you can start cooking your like interviews and things like that.
You read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, spring week and internships, but you have to make sure that you get to do meaningful work. You don't want to be there, to bring coffee to people, doing all the photocopying tasks. You want to do meaningful Excel work. You want to be helping people build models and stuff. Because at the end of the day, you need to be able to craft a meaningful story to why you want this position, and you have to talk about all this stuff that you've done in your internship during your interview. So the name of the company might not matter as much as the work that you do there.
Thank you so much. So, wanting to break into finance, do your research, have a clear goal, and find people who have the same interest as you, as Piru and Pikai said. So, and this brings us to the end of the session for today. Thank you so much, Piru and Pikai, for such an insightful talk. Really enjoyed the session, and I think I have learned a lot, and I think everyone here also learned a lot from both of you as well. Thank you so much for participating.
Cool. Thank you, Nong Mai.
No worries.
Thanks,
Nice chatting to you, Ryu.
Yes, let's chat with both of you too. And the next section, we will bring you guys to the consulting session, which will be led by Frame. So I'll pass it on to Frame.
โอเค thank you ครับมาก็เดี๋ยวเซสชันนี้นะครับ consulting ก็จะเป็นภาษาไทยเนี่ยเพราะว่ารุ่นพี่ requested มานะครับก็พี่มุกกับพี่เอิญเข้ามากันแล้วใช่ไหมครับยังไม่เห็นพี่มุก
สวัสดีครับ
อ๋อสวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับครับก็ก่อนอื่นเลยก็ขอบคุณพี่เอิญกับพี่มุกมากๆเลยนะครับที่สละเวลามาในวันนี้นะครับก็ผมชื่อเฟรมนะครับแล้วก็เดี๋ยวจะเป็นคน lead เซสชันนี้นะครับก็ตอนก่อนเริ่มนะครับก็อยากให้พี่มุกกับพี่เอิญนะครับช่วยแนะนำตัวนิดนึงว่าเคยเรียนที่ไหนคอร์สอะไรแล้วก็เคยทำงานที่ไหนมาบ้างแล้วก็ตอนนี้อยู่ที่ไหนนะครับก็เดี๋ยวเริ่มพี่เอิญก็ได้ครับ
ขอบคุณครับน้องเฟรมจะถามสั้นๆว่าน้องๆไม่ไปเที่ยวกันนะครับนี่วันนี้เสาร์เย็น
น้องๆหลายคนอยากมาฟังพี่มากกว่าครับ
โอเคทราบซึ้งมากพี่ชื่อเอิญนะครับพี่เรียน LSE จบ Management and Strategy แต่พี่เรียนแค่ Master LSE ก่อนหน้านั้นพี่เรียนธรรมศาสตร์นะครับพี่เรียน Engineering Management จริงๆแล้วพี่แก่แล้วนะครับคือพี่ทำงานมาค่อนข้างเยอะแล้วพี่เคยทำการีน่าอยู่ประมาณปีครึ่งนะครับก่อนที่พี่จะย้ายไปconsulting ที่ Roland Berger 3 ปีแล้วก็ตอนนี้พี่อยู่ McKinsey มาปีครึ่งแล้วครับ
โอเคพี่มุกต่อเลยก็ได้ครับ
ได้ค่ะก็พี่เรียนImperial นะคะ Design Engineering 4 ปีจบ Master แล้วก็เรียน City ไม่ใช่ทำงานที่ City มาปีหนึ่งค่ะแล้วก็ค่อยจอย BCG เป็น Management Consulting เป็น Associate ค่ะ
ครับโอเคก็พี่เอิญก็จะมี experience มากนิดนึงแล้วก็ส่วนพี่มุกจะเพิ่งได้ทำงานมา2 ปีใช่ไหมครับโอเคครับงั้นเดี๋ยวมาเริ่มที่คำถามแรกกันเลยแล้วกันนะครับก็หลายๆคนที่มาฟังในวันนี้นะครับก็อยากจะ break into consulting หรือว่าก็อยากเข้า consult นะครับก็ซึ่งทุกคนเนี่ยก็รู้กันดีว่าการจะเข้า consult เนี่ยมันค่อนข้างที่จะยากแล้วก็แข่งขันสูงมากโดยเฉพาะบริษัทที่ competitive หน่อยอย่าง BCG หรือ McKinsey ที่พี่ๆอยู่นะครับก็เลยอยากรู้ว่าพี่คิดว่าการจะเข้าไป interview แล้วก็สมัคร consult เนี่ยมันมี skills หรือว่า qualities อะไรที่พี่คิดว่ามัน underrated แล้วก็คิดว่า audience ทุกคนควรที่จะ develop ตรง skill ตรงนี้ก่อนที่เขาจะไปสมัครพวก consult ได้ครับเดี๋ยวเริ่มพี่เอิญก็ได้ครับ
โอเคคำถามนี้ค่อนข้างเยอะอยู่ skill ยังไงใช่ไหมคืออันนี้พี่ตอบ in management consulting in general เลยแล้วกันเพราะว่ามันต้องตอบทางด้านเราต้องทำcase interview ให้ได้ใช่ไหมครับในการเข้าแต่ก่อนที่เราจะทำcase interview เนี่ย I would assume you would have good grades จริงๆแล้วถ้าไม่ว่าจะเข้า entry level ที่ไหนมันแบบเขาไม่ได้ดูเขา McKinsey เองนะคือเราไม่ได้ดูว่าแบบอยู่ต้องจบอันนี้หรืออยู่ต้องมาจากมหาลัยอย่างนี้มันไม่ได้มีแบบคัดแบบเคลียร์คัดว่าอันนี้คือ yes or no ส่วนใหญ่เขาจะดูแบบโปรไฟล์ว่าแบบอยู่เรียนที่ไหนมาเอาคอร์สเขาก็คงดูแบบเกรดนิดหน่อยว่าแบบเกรดเราเป็นยังไงบ้างผ่านเกณฑ์ไหมอะไรเงี้ยซึ่งอันนี้พี่ไม่ใช่ recruiter พี่จะไม่รู้ว่าเกรดผ่านเกณฑ์เท่าไหร่นะครับเสร็จแล้วพอถ้าเรามีเขาเรียกอะไรแบบเกรดผ่านเกณฑ์แล้วสมัครเงี้ยมันก็จะมี recruiter ดูแล้วถ้าเขาผ่านเนี่ยเขาก็จะให้เราเข้าไปสัมภาษณ์ส่วนในตัว case interview เองไม่รู้ว่าพี่พูดเกินไปหรือเปล่าแต่ว่า case interview เนี่ยส่วนใหญ่เขาก็อยากจะของ McKinsey นะเขาอยากรู้จักเรา as in like they want to know who you are เงี้ยมันก็จะมีเรื่อง fit ที่เขาก็จะถามคำถามเกี่ยวกับตัวเราตรงนั้นแหละที่เราจะเอา experience ของเราเนี่ยทำให้ตัวเรา shine ออกมาจากคนอื่นเสร็จแล้วมันก็จะมีตัว case interview ที่แบบอยู่ต้องสัมภาษณ์แบบ problem solve through a case and that's to assess your problem solving skills so I would say in short เนี่ยหนึ่งคือ you ก็มีเขาเรียกอะไรเกรดให้ไม่น่าเกลียดมากจะได้ผ่าน recruiter ไหนเนี่ยเขาจะได้ผ่านไม่ว่าจะมหาลัยอะไรหรือว่า degree อะไรและหลังจากนั้นก็เตรียมตัวซ้อมthis special type of interview ซึ่งก็คือจะแบ่งเป็นแบบตัวfit ของเราแล้วก็ตัว case interview
ครับแล้วพี่มุกล่ะครับที่อาจจะเพิ่งเริ่มมีประสบการณ์แล้วก็เพิ่งผ่านประสบการณ์การอินเทอร์วิวมาน่าจะหมาดๆเลยพี่คิดว่ามันมีสกิลอะไรที่อินเทอร์วิวเวอร์เขาเห็นในตัวพี่ที่เขาอยากได้พี่มาทำงานด้วยครับ
โอเคพี่ว่า underrated skill ส่วนมากน่าจะเป็น problem solving แล้วก็ตามที่พี่เอิญบอกเลยก็คือส่วนมากมันจะหนักไปทาง case interview ซึ่งอันนี้มันจะเหมือนกับแบบให้เขาจะ give scenario มาว่าแบบปัญหาอันนี้คืออะไรแล้วทีนี้มันก็จะแบบเราก็จะต้อง solve ส่วนมากจะภายในประมาณ30 ถึง 40 นาทีอันนี้ค่ะเราก็จะเหมือนกับแบบเขาก็จะแบบ measure การแบบ ที่เราจะแก้ปัญหาลอจิกของเราคือเหมือนจริงๆแล้วอะเคสพวกนี้มันไม่ได้มีแบบคำตอบตายตัวเนาะว่าแบบมันจะต้องตอบแบบนี้แต่ว่า as long as แบบเราอธิบายลอจิกของเราได้อะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะมันแบบ logical ทุกอย่างเขาก็จะแบบโอเคแล้วก็ตามที่พี่เอิญพูดเลยว่าเราก็จะแบบส่วนมากก็คือต้อง practice ไอ้ตัว problem solving skill ให้ตรงกับใน case interview เราก็จะได้แล้วก็also agreeing to พี่เอิญ point ใช่ไหมว่าแบบจริงๆแล้วอ่ะการ case interview อ่ะ interviewer เขาแค่อยากจะรู้จักตัวเราเพิ่มขึ้นเท่านั้นว่าเราเป็นคนยังไงอะไรเงี้ยก็คือเหมือนกับแบบก็ต้อง prepare case interview ด้วยแต่ว่าก็คือแบบ be แบบ natural แบบ show the real you ให้ interviewer เขาได้รู้จักอยู่มากขึ้น
ครับ key takeaway คือ case interview สำคัญมากๆเลยใช่ไหมครับ โอเคเดี๋ยวเราจะกลับมาคุยเรื่อง case interview กันทีหลังนะครับแต่ว่าตอนนี้ขอย้อนกลับไปนิดนึงตอนก่อนที่พี่จะจบกันผมอยากรู้ว่าในตอนนั้นพวกพี่มี expectation เกี่ยวกับ consulting ยังไงบ้างแล้วก็พอพี่ได้เข้ามาทำงานจริงๆแล้วพี่รู้สึกว่ามันตรงตาม expectation ที่พี่มีไว้หรือเปล่าหรือมันมีอะไรที่แตกต่างออกไปบ้างครับก็เดี๋ยวพี่มุกเริ่มก็ได้ครับ
ได้ค่ะก็คือตอนก่อนที่พี่จะจบเนาะแบบจริงๆแล้วพี่ก็อยากลองจอยคอนซัลทิงเพราะมันจะเป็นสายที่ทุกคนพูดถึงว่าแบบเนี่ยคอนซัลทิงมันแบบดีอย่างงู้นดีอย่างนี้อะไรใช่ไหมแต่ที่ทุกคนก็จะพูดว่าแบบมันทำงานหนักนะมัน long hours อะไรเงี้ยแล้วพี่ก็คิดว่าโอเคก็ไม่เป็นไรมันแต่ว่ามันเป็นแบบ steep learning curve ใช่ไหมพี่ก็โอเคไปลองดูแต่ว่าคือพี่ว่า expectation ของการทำงานที่แบบ long hours อะไรเงี้ยก็คือมันเป็นเรื่องจริงก็คือแบบแล้วในความ long hours มันก็จะมีเหมือนความแบบความรีบความเร่งในการที่เหมือนกับแบบเราเพิ่งได้โจทย์มาแต่ว่าเราก็ต้อง deliver ให้แบบให้ในแบบ short period of time อะไรเงี้ยค่ะแล้วเราก็ต้องเหมือนกับแบบแบบเหมือนทำงานแบบเชิญเร็วๆอะไรเงี้ยก็อันนี้จะเป็น expectation ที่แบบพี่คิดว่ามันก็ long hour แต่ว่าเหมือนพี่ก็ไม่ได้คิดว่ามันจะ long ขนาดนี้แต่ว่ามันก็ไม่ได้ long ตลอดนะถ้าสมมติว่าเรามันก็แล้วแต่เคสแล้วแต่อะไรแต่ว่าพี่การันตีได้ว่าเราจะได้แบบ steep learning curve เราสูงจริงพี่มีอะไรจะแอดไหมคะ
โอเคเรื่อง long hours ประสบการณ์ของเราอาจจะต่างกันนิดนึง แต่ว่าโอเคคือโอเค long hours มันก็มีแต่สิ่งที่ตอนแรกที่พี่เข้าไปเนี่ยคือพี่อยากจบพี่อยากทำคอนซัลท์อยู่แล้วแหละแต่ว่าพี่ก็ไม่รู้ว่ามันคืออะไรจริงๆพอพี่เข้าไปได้อย่างเงี้ยพี่ก็ตกใจกับจำนวนสไลด์ที่ต้องทำอันนี้คือที่มุกบอกเลยคือแบบว่าพี่ก็ไม่คิดว่าเราต้องทำสไลด์เยอะขนาดนี้ฉะนั้นไอการทำสไลด์เร็วเนี่ยคือเป็นสิ่งที่พี่ไม่ได้คิดว่าต้องทำแล้วก็Excel อย่างเงี้ยคือตะกี้เซสชันที่แล้วพูดเกี่ยวกับ finance ใช่ไหมทาง consulting ก็ต้องทำ Excel เหมือนกันอย่างน้อยอย่างเงี้ยคือพี่ก็ไม่คิดว่าชีวิตพี่แบบ 90% ของเวลาของพี่จะอยู่หน้า PowerPoint หรือ Excel อย่างเงี้ยวันๆก็คือพี่เอาแต่นั่งทำไม่โมเดลก็คือทำสไลด์อย่างเงี้ยครับฉะนั้นอันนี้คือเป็นสิ่งที่พี่ไม่เคยทำมาก่อน especially ใน Garena คือแบบพี่ใช้แต่ Google Sheet อย่างเงี้ยคือมันก็แบบมันเปลี่ยนโลกของพี่ไปเลยฉะนั้นทำสไลด์เร็วทำ Excel ให้มันเนียบอย่างเงี้ยพี่ว่ามันเป็นแบบสกิลที่แบบตอนแรกพี่ไม่รู้เลยฉะนั้นมันกลับเข้าไปเนี่ยมันเป็นอะไรที่พี่แบบรู้สึกคอนซัลท์เราทำอันนี้กันจริงๆเนาะแต่ว่า other than that อย่างเงี้ยพี่ก็ไม่คิดว่าแบบสมัยก่อนที่อยู่ corporate มันจะมีประชุมแล้วมันก็หายไปกันไปฮะแต่คอนซัลท์คืออยู่แบบอยู่นั่งอยู่ในห้องกับทีมอยู่อย่างเงี้ยห้าคนอย่างเงี้ยแบบ from like 9 a.m. to like whenever you finish right so like you work แบบอยู่กับคนแบบจริงๆเงี้ย and then like สิ่งที่พี่ชอบคือว่าแบบมันได้ problem solve on the spot คือเหมือนกับพี่ติดอะไรปุ๊บพี่แบบ hey I have a problem แบบ how would you think about this แล้วพี่ก็แบบ crowd source idea จากคนในห้องแล้วเสร็จแล้วwe would come up with solutions then so I think that's also something ที่แบบพี่ไม่ได้ expect ว่ามันจะเป็นอย่างนั้น especially in corporate because like you don't do these problem solving sessions live แต่ว่าแบบ yeah that's what you do besides the PowerPoints the Excels อย่างเงี้ยthen you also do these problem solving as well
I think just to add to พี่เอิญ point on แบบเราทำ PowerPoint เยอะเราทำ Excel เยอะอะไรเงี้ยค่ะ just to bear in mind that we mostly do the strategy part of problem solving but less on the implementation ค่ะก็จะไม่ได้แบบ hands on มากในการที่จะแบบทำอะไรสักอย่างหนึ่งอะค่ะก็จะมองแบบเราจะทำเป็นเหมือนกับ initial phase ว่าโอเค strategy มันควรจะเป็นยังไงอะไรเงี้ยแต่ implementation ส่วนมากก็คือจะเป็นไม่ใช่เราจะเป็นแบบบริษัทที่เขาไปทำเองมากกว่า
ครับต่อจากพอยต์ตรงนั้นก็ที่พี่ออกมาก็คือ consulting งานค่อนข้างจะหนัก long hours ด้วยอันเนี้ยแล้วผมอยากถามพี่เอิญว่าเราพี่ได้ทำงานในสายนี้มาสักพักหนึ่งแล้วใน field consulting เนี่ยแล้วปกติผมเห็นว่าคนทำ consulting แบบแป๊บเดียวจะปี2 ปีแล้วก็เลือกที่จะไปออกแล้วก็ไปทำอย่างอื่นกันผมเลยอยากรู้ว่ามันมีอะไรที่ในงาน consulting หรือว่าที่บริษัทที่พี่อยู่ที่มันดึงให้พี่อยู่แล้วก็เป็นอะไรที่พี่ชอบแล้วอยากให้พี่ทำต่อไปอะครับ
Very good question ถ้าพี่ตอบตรงๆคือตอนนี้พี่ก็ไม่รู้ว่าพี่จะออกไปพี่ทำอะไร so แบบ it's a very เขาเรียกอะไรแบบ when you leave the firm ใช่อยู่ก็ต้องนั่งคิดว่าแบบโอเคแบบ how consulting อ่ะ is like you get a ticket ใช่ไหม and how you use that ticket to exit เนี่ย that's actually your choice ซึ่งตอนนี้ถ้าเราอยู่แบบเศรษฐกิจหรือว่า job market เนี่ย just to be fair I'll be very honest I don't think it looks that great so ฉะนั้นสิ่งที่พี่ก็เลยสมมติถ้าพี่จะออกเนี่ย I need to find somewhere better now back to the question ทำไมว่าพี่ยังอยู่ใช่ไหมคือหนึ่งคือพี่รู้สึกว่างานอันเนี้ยมันคือเพราะพี่ไม่รู้พี่อยากทำอะไรไงมันได้แบบ it's a cliche right I used to work in renewables and I work in a national postal service then I work in telco then I work for like cosmetics อย่างเงี้ยคือแบบ you can change your job แบบ very quickly นึกออกป่ะแล้วแบบนี่คือสิ่งที่พี่รู้สึกพี่ชอบไงแล้วก็แบบ you can actually แบบ besides the different variety of cases เนี่ย you สามารถทำงานต่างประเทศอย่าง like actually right now I'm based in พี่อยู่ทำงานโปรเจกต์อยู่ที่อินโดเนี่ย so you get to travel a lot and then of course like the benefits are very good third เนี่ยคือพี่รู้สึกว่าพี่ชอบคนแบบ actually the long hours and stuff it depends on who you work with พี่ก็จะเลือกคนที่แบบทำงานแบบชิลๆหรือว่าเพราะพี่ก็เป็นคนแบบไม่ค่อยอยากทำงานหนักเท่าไหร่ just to be very frank so especially given my age พี่แบบปี1ปี2พี่ไม่ไหวแล้ว so essentially พี่ก็เลือกทำงานแล้วแบบคนที่พี่ชอบมันยังอยู่ we still have a lot of fun together so the people and last but not least the benefits right I mean like of course like you have a very competitive package อยู่ไปทำงานต่างประเทศอยู่จะไปบินไปเที่ยวที่ไหนก็ได้ตราบใดที่แบบตั๋วมันกลับไทยมันก็เท่ากัน the 5-star hotels everything else อย่างเงี้ยคือพี่ก็รู้สึกว่ามันก็แบบโอเคแบบ if there's nothing else better to do then this is not a bad place to be
ครับแล้วสำหรับพี่มุกล่ะครับในฐานะที่เพิ่งเข้ามาใหม่อยากรู้ว่ามีอะไรที่พี่ชอบหรือไม่ชอบเกี่ยวกับงานที่พี่ทำอยู่ทุกวันนี้บ้างครับ
ได้พี่ก็ agree with พี่เอิญเลยว่าจริงๆแล้วพี่ยังไม่รู้ว่าพี่อยากจะทำอะไรในเหมือน passion ของพี่ก็เลยสมัครคอนซัลท์แล้วในคอนซัลท์เราจะได้ experience ในหลายบริษัทที่เขาทำงานหลายๆอย่างเช่นแบบสมมติว่าแบบ2 เดือนที่แล้วพี่อาจจะทำกับ telco อีก2 เดือนหน้าพี่อาจ2-3 เดือนหน้าพี่อาจจะทำกับแบบ consumer goods และ next thing ก็อาจจะทำให้แบบ social impact อะไรเนี่ยคือเหมือนกับแบบเราได้ experience ในหลายๆ area มากๆเลยมันเลยทำให้พี่รู้ว่าแบบโอเคแบบในแต่ละมุมมันเป็นยังไงอะไรเงี้ยเราก็จะได้แบบเรียนรู้แล้วก็ตามที่พี่เอิญบอกทุกอย่างเลยก็คือแบบเขาพวก benefits อะไรแบบนี้มันก็ดีแล้วก็ the people คือทุกคนจะแบบthey're all very smart very like intelligent intellectual แล้วมันดีมากๆที่ทำให้พวกเราแบบได้ทำงานกับเขาได้เรียนรู้ว่าเขาคิดยังไงแบบได้เรียนรู้ว่าเขาแบบ manage their life ยังไงได้เห็น lifestyle ว่าแบบแบบเขาสามารถทำงานได้ด้วยพวกเหมือนกับคนที่เป็น partner หรือ managing director คือเขาสามารถแบบทำได้ดีทั้งในด้านครอบครัวแล้วก็ในด้านการงานประสบความสำเร็จได้เห็นว่าแบบแบบคนที่เขาประสบความสำเร็จอะไรอย่างเงี้ยแบบเขาใช้ชีวิตกันยังไงแบบได้เห็นได้เรียนรู้อะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะ
ครับขอถามพี่มุกต่ออีกนิดนึงเพราะว่าพี่เพิ่งtransition มาจากเรียนมหาลัยมาทำงานไม่นานก็เลยอยากรู้ว่าการที่พี่มาทำงานที่ City หรือมาทำงานที่ BCG เนี่ยมันมีการเปลี่ยนแปลงจากตอนที่พี่เรียนอยู่เยอะไหมในด้านของพวกworking environment หรือว่า culture ถ้าพี่ไปcompare มันกับgroup work ที่ทำที่มหาลัยครับ
ได้สำหรับพี่นะอันนี้มันพี่ว่ามันน่าจะแบบแตกต่างไปในหลายๆคนแต่ว่าสำหรับพี่ตอนที่เรียนพี่จะรู้สึกว่าบางครั้งทำงานกลุ่มแล้วก็จะเจอเนาะคนที่เหมือนกับแบบก็ไม่ได้ว่าแบบเหมือนไม่ได้ขยันมากไม่ได้แบบ participate เยอะอะไรเงี้ยแต่ว่าตอนที่พี่ทำงานแบบทุกๆครั้งในหลายๆโปรเจกต์ในทุกโปรเจกต์เลยแหละที่พี่ทำมาไม่ว่าจะเจอคนกี่คนหรือว่าเปลี่ยนคนที่ทำงานด้วยทุกคนจะแบบมี drive ในการทำงานสูงมากถึงแม้ว่างานจะเยอะหรือว่าแบบ เราเวิร์กแบบ long hours มาแต่ว่าทุกคนจะไม่มีการว่าเหมือนกับแบบพรุ่งเมื่อวานนี้เราทำงานหนักแล้ววันนี้สไลด์ที่ต้องส่งช่างมันเถอะอะไรอย่างเงี้ยแบบปล่อยมันไปทุกคนจะไม่มีเลยทุกคนจะแบบไม่ได้ทุกอย่างแบบต้องเป๊ะนะต้องดีนะอย่างน้อยเราก็เหมือนกับ bear in mind ว่าเราก็อยากจะ deliver แบบ solution ที่ดีที่สุดสิ่งที่ดีที่สุดให้ลูกค้าออกไปอะไรเงี้ยคือเหมือนทุกคนแบบมี drive ตรงนั้นแล้วทุกคนก็คือเหมือนกับแบบthey're all like smart individual แล้วก็แบบ very driven มันจะไม่เหมือนกับตอนที่พี่เรียนมหาลัยบางคนอาจจะแบบเราอาจจะต้องแบบมานั่งทำงานให้คนอื่นด้วยอะไรเงี้ยแต่ว่าอันนี้คือเหมือนทุกคนก็คือแบบพร้อมที่จะเรียนรู้พร้อมที่จะทำงานพร้อมที่จะ tackle the problem จริงๆ
โอ้ interesting point มากเลยครับพี่คิดคล้ายๆกันนะครับว่าถ้ามองกลับไปตอนที่พี่อาจจะทำที่อื่นมาแล้วก็เปลี่ยนมาเข้า consulting เนี่ยมันมี situation คล้ายๆแบบนี้ไหมครับ
ใช่คือพี่ว่าเหมือนที่มุกพูดเนาะเหมือนกับ consulting เนี่ยมันคัดคนมาในระดับหนึ่งแล้ว so แบบin school there will be a variety of people แต่ว่าอยู่ใน consulting มันก็จะมีคนที่ค่อนข้างแบบ driven แต่ว่าในของพี่นี่อาจจะแบบว่าโอเคพี่อาจจะอยู่ใน chill environment มากกว่ามุกแต่ว่าพอมีอย่างเงี้ยคือส่วนใหญ่เนี่ยที่เขาเรียกอะไรแบบเราควรwhat we usually try to do is like answer the question like how do we solve the problem for the clients we focus on that อย่างเงี้ยand everyone's like driven towards that goal แล้วมันก็เขาเรียกว่าอะไร from พี่ก็จบมหาลัยมานานอยู่นะแบบมันก็จะมันมีหลาย element ที่คล้ายกันแต่ว่าส่วนใหญ่สิ่งที่พี่รู้สึกมันต่างคือว่า you are forced to work together one way or another right so มันทำให้แบบอยู่ต้องแบบ problem solve อะไรอย่างงี้ด้วยกัน and usually that's a very helpful way to get to the solution because like มหาลัยมันต่างคนต่างไปมันไม่ได้มีคนบังคับว่าเฮ้ยเราต้องอยู่ตรงนี้เพื่อ solve โจทย์นี้หรืออะไรเงี้ยso I would say that is the difference แต่ว่าแบบ yeah I would like to highlight on the colleagues part พี่ว่าไม่ว่าเข้าที่ไหนเงี้ยมันก็ you get really good colleagues to work with
ครับในฐานะที่พี่ได้ทำงานมาค่อนข้างนานแล้วก็ผมก็เชื่อว่าพี่ก็น่าจะได้เจอมาหลากหลายโปรเจกต์มากๆเลยผมก็เลยอยากรู้ว่ามันมี aspect ไหนของโปรเจกต์ไหมที่มันเป็นตัว determine ความยากหรือง่ายของโปรเจกต์นั้นๆที่พี่เคยทำมาอาจจะเป็น industry เป็น client หรือว่าเป็น topic หรือว่าเป็น teammates ก็ได้ที่คิดว่ามันมีเป็น aspect ตรงไหนที่ทำให้โปรเจกต์พี่ยากหรือง่ายสำหรับพี่
จริงๆที่เฟรมพูดนี่ถูกหมดเลยมันแล้วแต่เคสนะจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยพี่มองเลยนะอันแรกเลยที่พี่เลือกคือคนคือมันจะมีคนที่เราคลิกด้วยกับคนที่เราไม่คลิกด้วยเรานึกภาพว่าเราต้องอยู่กับคน5คนนั้นเนี่ยสมมติแบบ let's say 2 เดือนอยู่ต้องนั่ง9 โมงเช้าถึงแบบ3 ทุ่มอย่างเงี้ยนั่งอยู่กับเขาในห้องทั้งวันทั้งคืนทำงานด้วยกันนะถ้าอยู่ไม่ชอบ teammates ของอยู่ and that will happen at times in consulting you because sometimes like you are staff in different projects right that would be the most painful ฉะนั้นเวลาพี่เลือกทำโปรเจกต์พี่ actually ไม่ได้แคร์เรื่อง industry อะไรมากขนาดนั้นพี่เลือกคนว่าคนที่เราทำงานด้วยเป็นแบบ are these the people who you really want to work with อันนี้คืออย่างแรกอย่างที่2เนี่ยโอเค of course content สมมติพี่ไปทำแบบ oil and gas หรืออะไรเงี้ยมันอาจจะแบบ technical นิดนึงพี่ก็จะไม่รู้คำศัพท์พี่ก็ไม่รู้อะไรแต่ส่วนในตรงนี้มันแก้ปัญหาได้โดยการที่แบบพี่ว่าทุกบริษัทมันก็จะมี expert แล้วก็แบบอยู่ก็เอาเหมือนกับ expert คนนั้นอะมาช่วยอยู่ในการแบบ decipher แบบพวกแบบแต่ละอย่าง technical stuff that you do not knowอีกอย่างคือพี่ว่าโอเค besides like industry แล้วเนี่ยพี่ว่า client บาง client เนี่ยมันก็จะมี nature ของเขาและการที่ทำงานกับเขาเนี่ยมันก็ some people would love their style some people would not love their style มันก็จะมีว่า sometimes the client would be challenging some clients would be very demanding อะไรเงี้ย so แบบ yeah that would be like one of the challenges as well แต่ว่าพี่ว่าสิ่งที่สำคัญที่สุดเลยพี่เลือกคนถ้า topic แย่ขนาดไหนหรือว่าแบบแบบโลเคชันมันไกลขนาดไหนหรืออะไรเงี้ยแต่ถ้าเรามีทีมที่ดีพี่รู้สึกว่า like the pain's half gone because like you're actually in all this together yeah so for me like the biggest challenge comes from internally and that's the people that we have
ตรงนี้พี่มุก agree ไหมครับเป็นอะไรที่พี่ก็เจอมาเหมือนกัน
อันนี้ใช่แบบ agree ที่พี่เอิญพูดทุกอย่างเลยค่ะก็คือจริงๆแล้วusually we have a saying in consulting right thatมันมี4อย่างใช่ไหมที่เราจะดูเวลาเราอยากลงโปรเจกต์ไหนก็คือ firstly คนอันที่2ก็คือ location อันที่3คือ like client แล้วก็อันที่4คือ industry ก็คือถ้าเกิดว่าในเนี้ย3 ใน 4 project ที่เรา 3 ใน 4 ข้อนี้ที่เราโอเคก็คือ that is a perfect project for you แต่จริงๆแล้วสำหรับพี่อ่ะมันไม่มีหรอกว่าแบบทุกอย่างมันจะแบบติ๊กหมด4 ข้อมันแบบมันหาได้ยากใช่ไหมแต่สิ่งที่พี่ทุกคนและทุกคนแหละเพื่อนพี่ก็เหมือนกันที่จะ prioritize คือคนคือพี่ agree with พี่in everything ว่าแบบถ้าเกิดว่า at the end of the day แบบ no matter ว่าแบบ project มันจะ tough ขนาดไหนถ้าเกิดว่าคนแล้วก็แบบพวก project leader หรือพวกแบบคนที่เขาเป็น management ที่เขา manage project แล้วเขาเก่งแล้วเขาก็เหมือนกับแบบเราทำงานแล้วคลิกด้วยอะไรเงี้ยแบบมันจะทำให้การทำงานของเราง่ายขึ้นเยอะใช่แล้วก็อันที่สองก็คือจะเป็น client some of the clients are hard like they're difficult as like a company อะไรเงี้ยอาจจะมี culture ที่แบบไม่เหมือนกันอะไรเงี้ยค่ะก็คือแต่บางครั้งเราก็เลือกไม่ค่อยได้แต่ว่าส่วนมากอะเราก็จะเลือกคนเป็นหลัก no matter the industry because every industry is different and you get to learn something out of it no matter what แต่ว่าคนสำคัญมาก
น่าสนใจมากเลยครับก็โปรเจกต์นี้ก็ต้องเลือกดีๆเลยนะครับเนี่ยโอเคแต่ว่าก่อนจะเข้า consulting ได้เนี่ยผมก็อยากจะกลับมาที่ case interview นิดนึงเพราะว่าหลายๆคนใน audience เนี่ยก็กำลังจะสมัครงานนะครับก็อยากรู้ว่าเขาต้องทำยังไงถึงจะประสบความสำเร็จนะครับก็อยากให้พี่ๆแชร์ประสบการณ์นิดนึงว่าตอนที่พี่เตรียมตัวทำ case interview เนี่ยพี่เตรียมตัวกันยังไงจัดตารางเวลายังไงแล้วก็ใช้เวลาซ้อมกับมันเยอะไหมนะครับก็เดี๋ยวเริ่มที่พี่มุกก็ได้ครับพี่มุกน่าจะเพิ่งทำมาหมาดๆเลย
ได้ก็คือจริงๆพี่ว่าสำคัญที่สุดก็คืออย่างที่พูดไปก็คือ case interview ใช่ไหมแล้วเหมือนการที่พี่ปกติแล้วอ่ะการเตรียม case interview ก็คือต้องหา case partner แล้วก็เหมือนกับซ้อมเคสกันไปเรื่อยๆผัดกันเหมือนเขาเคสให้เราบ้างเราเคสให้เขาบ้างอะไรเงี้ยแต่ว่าเหมือนตอนที่พี่สมัครอ่ะเหมือนพี่เข้าไปทำงานซิตี้ก่อนปีหนึ่งเนาะมันก็เลยเหมือนกับว่าเพื่อนพี่ทุกคนที่ส่วนมากจะเข้า consulting ก็คือ they are either already in it or แบบไม่ไปแล้วอะไรเงี้ยพี่ก็เลยแบบหา case partner ไม่ค่อยได้แต่พี่ก็เลยรู้สึกว่าสิ่งที่พี่ทำแล้วพี่รู้สึก useful อ่ะคือเหมือนพี่ปริ้นเคสออกมาแล้วแบบพี่แบบเคสให้ตัวเองอ่ะสมมติว่าพี่ก็แบบอ่านเคสใช่ไหมแล้วทีนี้เหมือนกับแบบมันก็จะมีคำถามเราอ่ะคำถามที่มันจะถามเราพี่ก็แบบอ่านแล้วพี่ก็เหมือนกับแบบเขียนหรือว่าตอบอะไรเงี้ยเหมือนทำกับตัวเองก่อนตอนที่เรายังเคสไม่คล่องเพราะว่า especially when you're not from a business หรือว่า econ background อะไรเงี้ยแบบเราจะไม่รู้เลยว่าเหมือน structure ของเคสอะคืออะไรพอเวลาเราทำอย่างเงี้ยเราเคสให้ตัวเองอะเราก็เหมือนได้ตอบคำตอบที่เขาถามใช่ไหมแล้วทีเราอ่ะก็เหมือนไปดูแบบเหมือน mark scheme ด้วยว่าเขาต้องการอะไรแล้วทีเราก็จะเหมือนได้เห็นแล้วก็เข้าใจมากขึ้นว่าอันนี้คือสิ่งที่เขา look for นะแบบเป็น standard ที่เขา look for อะไรเงี้ยแล้วพอเราทำอย่างนี้ไปเรื่อยๆสัก10-20 อันอะไรเงี้ยเราค่อยไปหา case partner ตอนที่เราคล่องขึ้นอันนี้เราจะแบบเข้าใจมากกว่าในตอนที่เหมือนเขาเคสเราอ่ะแล้วเราจะได้แบบรู้สึกว่าแบบอันนี้มันแบบไม่ต้องเป็นเมธอดที่ไม่ต้องการหาคนมานั่งเคสให้เราคือเราก็สามารถทำเองได้แล้วหลังจากนั้นที่เราคล่องแล้วเราก็ค่อยหาเคสพาร์ทเนอร์อาจจะเป็นรุ่นพี่ก็คือเหมือนเริ่มจากเพื่อนก่อนแล้วก็สิ่งที่พี่ทำเนี่ยก็คือเริ่มจากเพื่อนก่อนแล้วก็ค่อยหาแบบพี่คนรู้จักอะไรอย่างเงี้ยจริงๆพี่ก่อนที่พี่เข้า ECG พี่ก็เคสให้พี่ด้วยแล้วมันก็จะอยากค่อยๆหาแบบรุ่นพี่อะไรเงี้ยที่ they're already in consulting for แบบมาให้เขาคิดให้ก็จะเป็น insight ที่ดีมากแต่ว่าเริ่มจากตัวเองก่อน
พี่รู้จักกันอยู่แล้วครับ
Yeah, you see well you see how small the world is so like ก็นั่นแหละก็คือแบบเดี๋ยวคนไหนอยากเคสก็ทักพี่หรือพี่บุ๊กมาอย่างเงี้ย if we can spare time will help สำหรับพี่เองพี่ of course I would agree with Muk right I think overall ก็คือว่าคือสำหรับพี่ไม่ได้ขายแพลตฟอร์มนะแต่พี่รู้สึกว่าตอนที่มันช่วยไอ้แพลตฟอร์มที่ช่วยพี่อ่ะคือเคสโค้ชแล้วก็เพื่อนคือพี่เป็นคนที่แบบพี่พูดตรงๆคือตอนนั้นพี่ทำถึงแม้พี่ย้ายมา McKinsey พี่ก็ยังต้องทำเคสนะ it's not like พี่ก็แบบพี่เข้ามาได้เลยไงพี่ก็ต้องทำเคสทุกอย่างใหม่หมดเลย so essentially ในการเตรียมตัวของเคสเนี่ยพี่โชคดีมากมีเพื่อนคนหนึ่งเขา apply consulting เหมือนกันพี่ก็เลยซ้อมกับเขาเนี่ยทุกวันก็คือพี่ม็อกให้เขาม็อกให้พี่4 ทุ่มถึงเที่ยงคืน every day for 2 months but that's a bit extreme แต่ว่า you guys don't have to do that แต่ว่า basically แบบพี่ก็ถือว่าตอนนั้นพี่มีเวลา so I give him a case he gives me a case both the full แบบboth fit and also the actual case ทีเนี้ย แต่ว่าแบบอันนั้นมันก็ซ้อมไปพอสักพักมันก็จะรู้สึกแบบ normal ฉะนั้นสิ่งที่พี่ทำอ่ะคือเสาร์อาทิตย์อ่ะพี่มีเพื่อนที่อยู่ MBB อยู่แล้วand thankfully แบบ they were kind enough to lend time actually these people they are very helpful นะ in general so แบบพี่ก็ขอให้เขาใช้เขาเป็น checkpoint ในการที่จะแบบcase mock case กับพี่อย่างเงี้ยฉะนั้นพี่รู้สึกว่าไอ้ตัว mock เนี่ยสำคัญแต่แบบ also what people แต่ว่าก่อนที่เราจะเข้าไปmock อะไรเงี้ย of course พี่รู้สึกว่าไอ้ตัว structure ที่มุกเราเนี่ยสำคัญ so if you have that nailed down at the very beginning before you mock even it would be even better คือแบบstructure คือแบบ how you actually line up to solve the problem and one thing I would like to give a tip on ก็คือว่า a lot of people would try to memorize things and once but actually MBB is not looking for people who memorize they actually look for people who actually can really answer the question so you structure your answer in a way that really solves the problem พี่รู้สึกวันนี้เป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญเกี่ยวกับ structure it's not about like oh it's customers it's competitors etc but it's more like what do I need to solve the problem also ก่อนหน้านั้นน่ะก่อนที่จะสัมภาษณ์เงี้ย of course if I take a step back CV อยู่อย่างที่พี่บอกเกรดมันก็ต้องผ่านในระดับหนึ่ง and also McKinsey Bain or BCG there'll be some kind of test that you have to do so also check what type of test you have to do normally พี่ว่าแบบ if you get into Imperial LLC you should have no problems doing the test but just to be careful on those thingsว่าwhat are those tests actually looking for so do spend a bit of time on that then just like once you pass the test and just like practice until you feel like you're confident enough yeah and use the people you know in McKinsey Bain or BCG or any consulting for that matter to just เขาเรียกว่าอะไรแบบ test or like check self check ว่า where you are อย่างเงี้ย
อยากย้อนกลับมาตรงเรื่องของ resources ที่ใช้ครับพี่ mention case coach ใช่ไหมครับแต่ถ้าผมเข้าใจไม่ผิดนะครับว่า case coach ก็จะต้องeitherจ่ายตังค์หรือว่าต้องอยู่ใน business school หรือว่าต้องสมัครไปแล้วถึงจะได้ใช้เพราะฉะนั้นอยากรู้ว่าสำหรับคน beginner นะครับที่เขาแบบอยากเริ่มใหม่จากศูนย์เลยแล้วเขายังไม่มี access ถึงตรงนั้นอ่ะพี่ recommend ให้ไปใช้ resource จากที่ไหนดีครับ
ถ้าเป็นพี่ก่อนนะพี่ก็มันก็จะมีหนังสือเนาะอันนี้ก็จะลงทุน100-200 บาทอย่างเงี้ยมันจะมีแบบวิกเตอร์เชงว่าอันนี้ไม่รู้จักกันว่าแบบ case interview secrets แล้วก็แบบไอ้ตัวมันมีอีกอันหนึ่งอ่ะพี่จำไม่ได้แล้วเป็นแบบ Mark Consentino case in point นั่นแหละโอเคแบบ that shows how long I've been away from these books these two would give you a sense actually I prefer case in point just a bit more than Victor Cheng's พี่ว่ามัน a bit more like เขาเรียกว่าอะไรแบบa bit too like simple do a case in point just read that book แล้วก็ลอง YouTube ดูก็ได้ actually there's a lot of like reviews or mocks of those like types of case interviews and actually if you Google you would find a lot of resources anyway and ถ้าอยู่ถามรุ่นพี่ then you'll get a bit more so พี่คิดว่าก็ use the internet or like the classic books or use your friends that you know so these like 3 sources อย่างเงี้ยมันน่าจะแบบ enough to get you to like you know แบบ maybe like 40-50% of the understanding อะไรเงี้ย of everything already then the rest to take you to 100 it's actually mocking with people แต่ที่พี่แนะนำ case coach คือพี่รู้สึกว่ามันแบบมันค่อนข้าง comprehensive ตรงที่มันมี drill มันมีอะไรเงี้ยให้มันเล่นเยอะ so แบบ even if you do not have a case partner you can still do something about it so that would be my advice
พี่มุกมีอะไรจะเสริมไหมครับ
ไม่มีเลยของพี่ก็ case in point เหมือนกันแล้วก็ case coach จริงๆพี่ว่าแบบถ้าสมมติว่ายังเรียนอยู่ในมหาลัยเงี้ย I think most of us should already be able to access นะใน case coach
โอเคครับก็นอกจาก case interview แล้วเนี่ยมันก็จะมีด้านของ fit interview ด้วยใช่ไหมครับซึ่งผมเชื่อว่าจะมีคำถามประมาณว่า why McKinsey why BCG ใช่ไหมครับซึ่งอันเนี้ยก็อยากให้พี่ๆแชร์นิดนึงว่าพี่คิดว่าบริษัทที่พี่ทำงานอยู่ตอนเนี้ยมันแตกต่างจากบริษัทอื่นๆยังไงแล้วก็ในด้านของอาจจะเป็นแบบ culture หรือว่า specialty หรือว่าวิธีการทำงานต่างๆนะครับเพื่อ audience จะได้เอาไปใช้พูดได้ในตอน fit interview ครับเดี๋ยวเริ่มที่พี่มุกก็ได้ครับ
ได้ค่ะก็คือสำหรับจริงๆพี่ว่าทุก MBB แบบน่าจะคล้ายๆกันแหละแต่ว่าโอเคสำหรับ BCG พี่รู้สึกว่าเหมือนwithin the BCG like network มันมีคนเยอะมากๆที่เหมือนกับแบบมี expert in everything คือไม่ว่าแบบเราจะทำ project เกี่ยวกับเรื่องอะไรI guarantee แบบ 99% ว่าแบบเราสามารถหา expert within the BCG network ได้ที่เราจะสามารถไปปรึกษาว่าแบบโอเคแบบ client problem เป็นแบบนี้นะอะไรเงี้ยเหมือนกับแบบเราควรจะ solve ยังไงดีอะไรเงี้ยคือเหมือนพี่รู้สึกว่าแบบ network เรามัน expert network เรามันแบบมันแข็งมากมันแบบก็คือเหมือนกับแบบทุกคนมีประสบการณ์เยอะมากที่จะแบบสามารถช่วยแล้วก็แชร์แล้วก็จริงๆแล้วทุกคนอ่ะแบบค่อนข้าง willing ที่จะ help so everybody is like very helpful แล้วก็เขา willing ที่จะช่วยอยู่แล้วไม่ว่าเราจะแบบมีปัญหาอะไรหรือว่าถึงแม้ว่าเขาจะไม่ได้ทำงานกับโปรเจกต์เดียวกันกับเราก็ตามเขาก็ยังจะแบบแบบ willing ที่จะ lend a hand to help อะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะก็คืออันนี้ก็จะเป็นหนึ่งอย่างที่พี่รู้สึกว่ามันแบบมันแบบมันดีมันแบบเหมือนมันเซอร์ไพรส์พี่เหมือนกันตอนที่พี่คิดว่าก็เขาอยู่กันเขาจะคนละโปรเจกต์กับเราเขาก็งานเยอะอยู่แล้วทำไมเขาต้องมาช่วยอะไรเราอะไรอย่างงี้ใช่ไหมแต่จริงๆแล้วก็คือเขา willing ที่จะช่วยมากๆแล้วก็ everybody in BC is typically very nice ทุกคนแบบ inclusive มาก very open to help friendly helpful ใช่
แล้วของพี่กายพี่นะครับ
โทษโซสำหรับพี่ใช่ไหมอันนี้คือคำถามเรื่องฟิตใช่ไหมว่าสมมติฟิตแล้วอย่างเงี้ยมันจะแบบhow to prepare for the fit so McKinsey is actually very แบบเขาเรียกอะไรอยู่ลองไปแบบ actually on McKinsey's website for the fit part you can actually find it on the website they actually test you on like 4 to 5 things so actually of course you have the questions like why McKinsey and just tell me about yourself right แต่ว่า McKinsey's caseตัว fit เนี่ย is actually quite unique from the others but the questions itself อย่างเงี้ยit's on the website I think it's like besides problem solving ที่เขา assess ใน case interview มันก็จะดูเลยแบบ courageous change inclusivity you know other พี่จำไม่ได้แต่ว่า there are a few things on the website ที่เขาบอกเลยว่า we'll look into these 3 things like entrepreneurship impact อย่างเงี้ยso แบบ those are the things you just have to prepare for so แบบ for McKinsey fit อย่างเงี้ยit's just whatever they put on the website. Not gonna go away from that. Yeah.
โอเคครับก็คือแค่ไปเปิดเว็บไซต์ McKinsey แล้วก็จำมาให้หมดได้เลยเขาจะบอกว่า
there are 4 to 5 things of course อย่างเงี้ย when you answer those questions อย่างเงี้ย they'll actually try to อันนี้คือพี่พูดตรงๆเลย they'll try to challenge you ว่าแบบthen like how have you demonstrated the personal impact part how have you demonstrated your skills in entrepreneurship how have you you know demonstrated your skills in you know inclusive growth อะไรเงี้ย so yeah just I wouldn't say memorize I would say like what stories you have to show that you have an example that exemplifies what McKinsey is looking for I would frame it that way
โอเคครับโอเคก็เดี๋ยวก่อนที่เราจะ move ไปฝั่งของ Q&A นะครับก็อยากจะให้พี่ๆทั้งสองคนให้ advice กับ audience ของเรานิดนึงสำหรับคนที่อาจจะกำลังจะจบนะครับแล้วก็จะสมัคร consulting ก็ถ้าพี่มองกลับไปตอนที่ก่อนพี่จะ graduate แล้วก็ก่อนจะหางานเข้า consulting ครับพี่คิดว่ามันจะมี advice 2 อย่างที่เกี่ยวกับงาน consulting ที่พี่อยากจะให้กับน้องๆครับก็เดี๋ยวเริ่มที่พี่เอิญก็ได้ครับ
โอเค advice สมมติถ้าอยากเข้าคอนซัลท์พี่ก็รู้สึกว่าฝึกซ้อมให้ดีนะครับฝึกซ้อมมาให้ดี because like you know I think consulting it's about preparation to get in so I would say you เตรียมตัวให้ดีแล้วก็แบบtry to find out what it really is อย่างเงี้ยแล้วก็แบบyeah just talk to a lot of people ที่เป็น consult อยู่แล้ว like today you know me today you know พี่มุก so you can feel free to like leave us a message or something afterwards to really learn about what our lives are hopefully we answer most of your questions here แต่ว่า really try to learn about what it is and if this is something you would like to do เนี่ยถ้าอยู่เป็นเหมือนคล้ายๆกับพวกพี่หรือว่าแบบไม่รู้ว่าจะทำอะไรอยากทำงานกับคนเก่งๆอยากได้ประสบการณ์หลายๆที่ then maybe this is one of the jobs you should be considering so just like if that is the case then just like practice and then yeah just keep practicing and then you'll be there
พี่มุกแล้วครับ
สำหรับพี่ก็ yes case interview very important แต่ว่าพี่รู้สึกว่าแบบถ้าเรามีโอกาสอะไรเงี้ยหรือว่ามีเวลาตอนปิดเทอม I would really recommend internship at some consulting company because แบบเราจะได้รู้ว่าเราจะได้เข้าไปทำงานแล้วเหมือนพอรู้ว่าลงโปรเจกต์โอเคมันเป็นแบบนี้นะ that like consultants work like this มันจะได้เหมือนกับแบบพอเห็นว่า what are the kinds of project we are actually working on แล้วก็แบบ day to day life ของพวกเราเป็นยังไงอะไรเงี้ยพี่ว่ารู้สึกว่าอันเนี้ยสำคัญว่าเราชอบมันจริงๆหรือเปล่า and then if yes then case interview is 100% important แน่นอนแล้วก็ I think maybe just minor point on when you're doing an interview right ตอนสุดท้ายเขาจะมีแบบ Q&A ให้ใช่ปะคืออันเนี้ยมันไม่ได้จะ add towards your point หรอกตอน interview แต่ว่าเหมือนมันจะมีให้ยูถามคำถาม interviewer ตอนหลังI think maybe just spend like half an hour or like 20 minutes before the interview right just researching about your interviewer ว่าแบบโอเคเขาเหมือนกับแบบ major ใน practice area ไหนหรือว่าส่วนมากโปรเจกต์เขาเป็นยังไงอะไรเงี้ย and then ask about that during your interview before the end of the interview มันไม่ได้ว่าจะเพิ่มคะแนนอยู่แต่เหมือนกับแบบมันทำให้เขาจำเราได้ and I think this is important
โอเคครับเดี๋ยวก็ขอก่อนจะไป Q&A อยากจะกลับมาที่ point ของพี่กายพี่เอิญนิดนึงพี่เอิญบอกว่าพูดถึงเรื่องของการไปพูดคุยกับคนเยอะๆผมก็เลยอยากรู้ว่าพี่คิดยังไงกับการ working ว่ามันสำคัญมากน้อยแค่ไหนกับการเข้าไปทำงานเรื่องของคอนซัลท์ครับ
หมายถึง networking เพื่อที่จะเข้าพวกบริษัทพวกนี้ใช่ไหมครับ
ใช่ครับการที่ไปคุยกับคนที่ทำงานอยู่หรือว่าเคยทำงานที่บริษัทนั้นนะครับ
คือพี่ว่าคุยกับคนพวกนี้มันจะได้ perspective per se ว่าแบบ your application will look better not really หรอกแต่ว่าเวลาอยู่เข้าไปพูดกับคนเนี้ย at least you would know like คนแบบ how McKinsey is อย่างเงี้ยอย่างพี่อย่างเงี้ยก่อนที่พี่จะเข้า I know a few people in McKinsey already so I give them a call I tell them like อันนี้แบบ this is a เขาเรียกอะไร I want to apply what's the life like here then you actually learn about like consulting in that sense ว่าแบบชีวิตมันเป็นยังไงแบบมันน่าทำไหมโปรเจกต์มันเป็นยังไง because like everyone's gonna say look we have a lot of these projects here and there right แต่ว่าแบบ eventually พี่ก็รู้ว่าMcKay มันทำหลากหลายจริงๆไม่ได้ focus on like only one or two industries อะไรเงี้ย so knowing people would actually give you a better sense of what type of company you're going for I give you this example อย่างเงี้ย you say Man United for football fans Manchester United Chelsea Manchester City 3 football clubs you would say it's the same right แต่ว่าสไตล์การเล่นฟุตบอลสไตล์การแบบบริหารสไตล์การซื้อโปรไฟล์อะไรมันต่างกันหมด right so you really network for these people to really know the insides of the firm พี่ว่า I wouldn't say it is something ที่เขาเรียกอะไรแบบ it wouldn't make your application look better แบบ more or less แบบ the application มัน go through a recruiting portal so unless แบบyeah so most of the time อย่างเงี้ยมันแบบคนพวกเนี้ยเขาก็แค่แบบสมมติแบบฝากพวกพี่ยื่นอะไรเงี้ยมันก็พี่อาจจะตามได้แต่ถ้าแบบrecruiters will have a certain criteria to go so in terms of making your application เด่นกว่าคนอื่นแบบ not really I don't think networking is gonna help but networking will give you a better sense of how the company works inside and also it is something you can mention in the fit that hey I know this person and you know this is one of the reasons I want to join the company yeah
โอเคครับน่าสนใจมากเลยครับโอเคเรามีคำถามจาก audience ค่อนข้างที่จะเยอะงั้นเดี๋ยวผมขออนุญาตเข้า Q&A เลยนะครับก็เริ่มที่คำถามแรกนะครับอันนี้น่าจะให้พี่เอิญนะครับ What are the key to success for McKinsey PEI stories Do you have any tips to make our story unique and not typical
That is a tough question แต่พี่ว่าคำตอบเนี้ย is within your own story คือแบบ basically what คือ I would say this สมมติ let's say youแบบ you are first of all like whatever stories you have I would say would more or less be original to you แต่ว่าบางครั้งเนี้ย you ก็ลองคิดดูว่าแบบคือ again like any story is fine to be honest as long as it answers what McKinsey is looking for I do not think I have a tip to make stories unique because I think everyone would come up with their own story แต่พี่อยากให้เรานึกกับตัวเองแล้วถามว่า what is very impactful what did you do that's very impactful หรืออะไรเงี้ยหรือว่ามันเป็นสิ่งที่แบบมันเกิดขึ้นyou made such a good impact after that อย่างเงี้ยมันก็ whatever you did or your actions led to something great so I think that's something I would consider แต่ว่าจริงๆ there's no hard and fast rule อย่างเงี้ยof course when you think about it ถ้าอยู่เป็นคนสัมภาษณ์แล้วอยู่สัมภาษณ์เด็กแบบจบ business อย่างเงี้ย they may always talk about the case competition you may think about from that angle ว่าแบบinterviewer เขาจะเบื่อไหมซึ่งจริงๆit's actually interviewers are trained not to be biased anyway แต่ว่า you know if how to make your stories unique would be, I think about the impact of what that had in your life, and like people I think would value more of the recent stuff. I know you guys are probably likeยังไม่จบใช่ไหมหรือเรียนอยู่ so ประสบการณ์นี้มันอาจจะมาจาก internship หรือมาจาก any group project that you're consider currently like doing right now. So there's not much you can go beyond that unless you are a startup founder or something. But like คือตอนเนี้ยพี่รู้สึกว่า at your starting point in your career อย่างเงี้ย whatever story you have, just think about the impact that it made, and just pick the ones that are most impactful. Because like to be honest, to be fair to you guys as well, you don't have a lot of experience.
มันสำคัญมากๆเลยที่จะโชว์ให้เขาเห็นว่าสิ่งที่เราทำมันสร้าง impact ได้จริงนะครับใช่ไหมครับ
Yeah, I would say think about impact แล้วก็ think about คนฟังแล้วเขาคอยตามไปด้วยว่า wow this is actually something that's very very impactful, and also very important เรื่อง when you're interviewing, right, it's about you, it's not about the team, it's about you. Yeah, so just make sure you highlight your actions ไม่ว่าอันนี้เป็นที่ไหนก็ตามแต่ว่า I think that's very important.
โอเคครับงั้นเดี๋ยว let's move on to next question ถ้าใครมีคำถามในนี้แล้วก็ยกมือขึ้นแล้วก็ถามได้เลยเหมือนกันนะครับโอเคคำถามต่อไปนะครับ Would you say consulting is likely a great start for people that want to start their own businesses พี่มุกเริ่มก่อนก็ได้ครับคำถามนี้
ได้for the people who want to start their own business I think yes still เพราะว่าเหมือนพอเราได้ทำ consulting เราจะได้ work กับหลายๆบริษัทซึ่งเราจะได้เห็นว่าจริงๆแล้วข้างในบริษัทใหญ่ๆหรือไม่ใหญ่มากอะไรเงี้ยมันแบบเขาทำงานกันยังไงแล้วก็เอาจริง every firm is different so you get to learn on like how these firm work แล้วมันพี่คิดว่าแบบเราน่าจะแบบสามารถ apply these aspects ก็คือแบบ pick and choose the good and the bad things ที่แต่ละเฟิร์มเขาแบบมีแตกต่างเราจะได้ pick and choose ว่าโอเคเราจะเอามา apply กับ business เราได้ยังไงเพราะว่าเอาจริงๆแบบ how they work how they operate their business strategy I think every firm is different and by being in consulting you will get to see that in most of the project that you do
พี่มีอะไรจะแอดไหมครับ
No, I completely agree, right? คือ consulting gives you basics of like how to think, how to problem solve, and these skills พี่ว่ามันค่อนข้าง transferable to whatever you're planning to do. If you want to start a business, then you have to research about the market, you have to research about all these things. Then you also have to like present to people, I would assume, to present your ideas and find out whatnot. And คือพี่ว่าสิ่งที่อยู่ได้จาก consulting คือ like the problem solving toolkit ซึ่งไม่ว่า you just start your own business or not เนี่ย then you know like you need these skills throughout your life. So พี่คิดว่า yes, consulting is a great start for people to start their own business. Also people who often work in consulting, that they find other passions in the firm. You find people with the same passions in the firm. Those could be your partners in the future as well. So like PY, yes, it is a great place to start a business.
โอเคครับก็คำตอบวันนี้ก็คือ yes it's a good start นะครับโอเค move on ไปคำถามถัดไปนะครับก็มีคำถามถัดไปWhat is your recommendation for someone who works in marketing field ค่ะพี่เริ่มก่อนไหมครับ
พี่ว่าโอเค this is a advice ของพี่มันก็จะ generate นิดนึงนะแต่มันก็จะกลับไปเหมือนกับว่าแบบคือ it's good that you have the marketing experience, right? But eventually อย่างเงี้ยแบบเขาเรียกอะไรแบบ like any other field that you're coming from อย่างเงี้ย you have to just I go back, I'm gonna sound like a broken record แต่ว่า you have to prepare for the case interview, so just find out ว่าแบบไอ้พวกนี้มันคือไง and then like it's not to say whatever you know in marketing would not be useful. It will be useful if you join a firm and then you know tips here and there แต่ว่าระหว่างเข้าเงี้ย you ต้องเขาเรียกอะไร adopt a mindset where like you know it's very a unique mindset แต่ว่าแบบ whatever you have learned in the industry อย่างเงี้ย just try to just knock it out of the way, because those biases may affect how you actually answer the case question. Like, oh, based on my experience, it should be done this way. Because consulting, it's, you know, you're supposed to tackle the problem on hand. So,พี่คิดว่าแบบ having marketing experience is good. It's better than having no experience. But then, like, just when you prepare for the case interview, just try to look into how you do that and try not to bring your experience in that much when you are thinking about the solution เพราะ you อาจจะมี bias แต่ว่าแบบ recommendation wise for me it's just the same as anyone who's applying so just make sure you know what type of test you have to pass you know how to conduct a case interview so I think it's on that front
พี่มุกมีอะไรจะแอดไหมครับ
พี่ก็ agree with พี่เอิญ in everything เพราะว่าจริงๆแล้ว case interview สำคัญที่สุดในการที่จะเข้า consulting เพราะว่ามันเป็นเหมือนกับ the only gateway ที่ interviewer เขาจะเห็นเราเพราะฉะนั้นเราต้อง prepare ดีๆจริงๆyes marketing experience will help you แต่ว่ามัน more later on the stage แต่ว่าจริงๆแล้วเราก็สามารถใช้ experience ตรงนี้เหมือนกับแบบพูดบอกเขาในฟิตก็ได้ว่าโอเคเรามีแบบ achievement อะไรบ้างอะไรเงี้ยอันนี้เราสามารถพูดได้ so that they get to know you better and but then case interview again very important ต้องเตรียม case เยอะๆค่ะ
โอเคเรามีว่า one hand raise นะครับก็จากตี้นะครับเปิดไมค์แล้วพูดได้เลยนะครับ
สวัสดีครับพี่เอิญกับพี่มุกก็อยากจะถามเรื่องเกี่ยวกับงานนั่นแหละคือเราได้ยินมาแล้วว่าแบบคือ consulting มันเกี่ยวกับการ problem solving คือมีปัญหาเข้ามาเราพยายาม solve ให้ client แต่อยากรู้จริงๆประมาณว่าแบบ day to day คืองานของงานคือแบบเวลาได้งานเข้ามามันเกิดอะไร actually what's happening in the office room and like how when you found a backlog like how do you solve it ครับพี่มุกก่อนเลย
สำหรับพี่จริงๆแล้วอะเวลาโอเค day to day จริงๆแล้วส่วนมากมันจะไม่ใช่อารมณ์เหมือนกับแบบเหมือนเวลาเราทำงานใน corporate ใช่ไหมที่แบบเหมือนกับแบบอาจจะมีปัญหาขึ้นมาแล้วเราต้องไป solve อะไรเงี้ยแต่ส่วนมากมันจะเป็นเหมือนกับตอนเริ่ม project เราจะ align กับลูกค้าก่อนว่าโอเคแบบwhat are your problem what are your expectations on the deliverables เสร็จแล้วทีเนี้ยหลังจากนั้นเราจะมานั่ง break down เป็น work stream ว่าโอเคคนนี้โฟกัสที่จะ solve ตัวนี้อีกคนหนึ่ง work on อันนี้แล้วเราค่อยเอามาเหมือนกับแบบมาประกอบกันอะไรเงี้ยส่วนมาก day to day ก็จะเป็นworking on those work stream นั่นแหละว่าโอเคตอนเช้ามาเราก็จะเปิดมา align กับพวก project leader ก่อนว่าโอเคอันนี้คือ task ที่เราต้องทำนะอันนี้คือสิ่งที่เราต้องทำให้เสร็จเราคิดว่าอันนี้จะทำเสร็จภายในวันนี้วันนี้เราจะทำอะไรคือเหมือน align expectation ว่าในงานที่เราต้องทำมันมีอะไรบ้างแล้วก็ใช้เวลาทั้งวันนั้นแบบทำแต่ว่าจริงๆแล้วส่วนมากเราจะไม่ได้รอ project leader มาสั่งว่าเราจะต้องทำอะไรแต่ว่าเราจะต้องคิดเองได้ว่าโอเคถ้าสมมติว่าเราจะต้องทำงานชิ้นนี้ให้เสร็จสมมติว่าเราต้องเขียนสมมติว่าเราต้อง market research ให้กับลูกค้าเราจะต้องคิด backward ว่าแบบโอเค the deadline is in 2 weeks เราจะทำยังไงให้เสร็จแล้วเราจะต้องคิด method เอาเองว่าเราจะไป arrive at the solution ยังไงแบบไม่ได้รอ project leader มาสั่งแล้วเราก็ค่อยไปเอา method เราเอา approach เราไป align กับเขาอีกทีหนึ่งว่าโอเคแบบนี้โอเคไหมเขามี recommendations อะไรไหมที่เราควรจะ incorporate ลงไปอีกอะไรเงี้ย
Yeah I think yeah same as what Book has mentioned right คือพี่ว่า day to day อย่างเงี้ยแบบปกติ project นึงon average I think it would last around 3 to 4 months ซึ่งแบบอันเนี้ยวันลูกค้าก็จะบอกแล้วโอเคเราอยากให้คุณช่วยแก้ปัญหา1 2 3 4 5เสร็จปุ๊บเนี่ยใน1 2 3 4 5เนี่ยมันก็จะมีในแต่ละทีมนึงใช่มันก็จะมีพาร์ทเนอร์ซึ่งพาร์ทเนอร์พี่แต่ละโปรเจกต์มันแล้วแต่ว่าเขาจะ involve ขนาดไหนเงี้ยบางทีพาร์ทเนอร์มันจะมีพวกแบบassociate partner ที่เป็นคล้ายๆกับแบบดูแลคล้ายๆกับดูแลลูกค้าใช่ไหมแล้วมันก็จะมีmanager ซึ่ง manager เนี่ยก็จะเป็นหรือ project leader ที่ BCG เนี่ยเขาก็จะดูว่าแบบอันนี้คือแบบเขาจะดูแลโปรเจกต์ในแต่ละสตรีมของเขาและในแต่ละสตรีมเนี่ยมันก็จะมีคนในทีมก็คือแบบพวกแบบ associate business analyst อะไรเงี้ยชื่อตำแหน่งมันอาจจะต่างกันในแต่ละบริษัทแต่ว่า essentially that's the construct of the team ซึ่งในทีมรูมเกิดอะไรขึ้นอย่างเงี้ยอย่างพี่ตอนเนี้ยพี่ก็จะเริ่มซีเนียร์หน่อยพี่จะเริ่มดูทีมหนึ่งของพี่ฉะนั้นทีมของพี่เนี่ยพี่ก็จะดูว่าโอเควันเนี้ยเขาจะทำอะไรบ้าง and of course if I get someone as good as Mook เงี้ย then they will tell me what to do but otherwise I have to tell them what to do แต่ว่า each day อย่างเงี้ยแบบ if the project or the study is like 3 months or 3 months long not every problem is gonna be solved today อยู่ก็ต้องไปอย่างปกติสิ่งที่พี่ทำเนี่ยคือพี่ก็จะดูก่อนว่าโอเค สมมติเรามีสเตียโคคือมีติ้งที่เราต้องคุยกับลูกค้าอาจจะทุกอาทิตย์อย่างเงี้ยเราต้องเอาอะไรไปพรีเซนต์ลูกค้าในอาทิตย์นี้แล้ว we work backwards from there ว่า how do we get to answering the client's questions then มันก็แล้วแต่ method ละอย่างเช่นอย่าง on a typical day and it differs one person may be working crunching on the Excel to just identify the revenue potential อีกคนอาจจะเราไม่รู้ว่าตรงนี้เราจะหาคำตอบทางด้าน competitive market landscape ยังไงเราก็เลยต้องไปหาแบบexternal research แล้วก็ไป interview other people in the market etc right อีกคนก็อาจจะแบบเขาเรียกอะไรวันนี้I need to actually hold a workshop with the client to really understand what were the pain points that they were experiencing like 1 year ago อะไรประมาณนี้ so แต่ละคนงานมันจะต่างกันมากแต่ in a day to day เงี้ย each person will do something like this ก็คือว่า they're trying to solve one of the little problems as we try to picture everything together and it's usually แบบ as you grow a bit more older เงี้ย you ก็เป็นคนแบบtoday you have to solve this problem and then you ก็ assign คนว่าแบบโอเคอยู่ไปทำงี้มา so each person will have a different job sort of you have no 2 days will be the same and that's the beauty of it แต่ว่าแบบeventually you ก็ต้องแบบ try to like Muk said right find an approach align your approach with your leader and then you just execute towards it so like there's no typical one day but that's what you do in a day but actually
โอเคครับ
thank you ครับทั้งสองคน
โอเคเรามีคำถามเพิ่มมาใน Mentimeter นะครับก็มีคำถามว่าอันนี้สำหรับพี่มุกนะครับ Did your city experience help you get a role at BCG and what are the differences of working in a bank and a consulting firm
Okay, so in terms of city experience helped me getting into consulting. I would say ตอน fit ช่วยก็คือพี่สามารถบอกได้ว่า okay at city I worked on this was my achievement ใช่ไหมแบบ I learned something out of that ก็คือตอน fit ช่วยแต่ว่าจริงๆแล้ว case interview which is the crux of the interview right มันไม่ได้ช่วยมากขนาดนั้น so I actually had to แบบตั้งใจติว the case interview แต่ว่าเราสามารถใช้ experience จริงๆไม่ต้องเป็นของแบงก์ก็ได้แต่ว่าก็คือ any experience ก็ relevant to fit หมดนั่นแหละแต่ว่าโอเค the next part ใช่ไหมว่าการทำงานใน city กับที่นี่มันต่างกันยังไงก็คือ for me and I think this applies แบบแต่ละคนก็จะไม่เหมือนกันแบบ depends on the person นะแต่ว่าไอรู้สึกว่าตอนที่ทำ city มันจะแบบเหมือนมันจะเป็นแบบ more like corporate work life balance ก็คือแบบโอเคเข้าออฟฟิศ9 โมง 10 โมงอะไรอย่างนี้ใช่แบบ5 6 โมงอยู่ก็จะเลิกแล้วเพราะว่าเหมือนงานหรือว่า the timeline ที่ในการทำงานของเขามันค่อนข้างยาวก็คือ basically เราจะมีเวลาทำงานนานกว่าในคอนซัลท์แต่ว่าในคอนซัลท์เหมือนโปรเจกต์ทุกอย่างมันจะแบบมันมีอะไรให้เราต้องทำเยอะแต่ว่าเวลาเรามีน้อย so hence มันแบบต้องทำงานแบบนานกว่าใช่ไหมแต่ว่าจริงๆในซิตี้มันจะเป็นเหมือนกับแบบเราต้องทำอันนี้ให้เสร็จแต่ว่าจริงๆแล้วเรามีเวลาแบบเดือน2 เดือนในการทำเลย so มันก็ค่อยๆทำไปได้ so I think difference ที่แบบใหญ่ที่สุดของก็คือเหมือนกับแบบ the amount of work you have to do in a day นั่นแหละเพราะว่าแบบที่ซิตี้มันแบบงานเท่านี้แต่จริงๆเรามีเวลานานมากกว่ามันจะต้องแบบส่งอะไรเงี้ยแต่ว่าในคอนซัลท์ก็คือ actually แบบ have so much to do แล้ว you ต้อง prioritize ว่าควรจะทำอันไหนก่อนเพราะว่า you have a lot to do in one day
ครับโอเคก็ key takeaway คือซิตี้สบายกว่าคอนซัลท์
อันนี้ทุกคนน่าจะแบบพอ relate ได้
โอเคคำถามต่อไปนะครับก็ do you get to travel a lot and what about opportunity to move to other offices พี่เอิญคิดว่าไงครับพี่เอิญได้ไปเที่ยวบ่อยไหมครับ
พี่เที่ยวบ่อยจนพี่เหนื่อยแล้วแต่ว่าโอเค yes you actually do travel a lot actually at McKinsey the beauty is you can actually pick ว่าอยู่จะไปไหนอย่างตอนนั้นพี่ก็เลือกว่าแบบพี่ไม่เคยไปประเทศอินโด so I justมีประมาณ 4-5 project approach มามีที่เวียดนามอะไรเงี้ย so I've been to Vietnam. I've actually never tried Indonesia, so I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go to Indonesia. So actually, this is the cool part, right? คือยูย้ายมาอยู่อินโดเงี้ย then you get to fly back every week. แต่ว่าถ้ายูไม่เลือกที่จะบินกลับเงี้ย you can actually fly somewhere else อย่างเงี้ย I had this friend who's like Romanian. He made a deal. He บินมาอยู่ Southeast Asia for 3 months, and then like he ก็แบบโอเค I'm not gonna go home I'm not gonna go back to Romania I'm gonna fly around เขาก็ทุกอาทิตย์เขาบินไปกรุงเทพบ้างบินไปฮ่องกงบินไปไต้หวันคือก็คือแบบมันอยู่ใน firm budget as long as the ticket price is same you can fly anywhere so that's also the good part so yes you do travel a lot if you choose to now I'm starting to feel a bit old so I'm like okay แบบพี่รู้สึกพี่เดินทางมากเกินไปแล้ว and also one more thing ถ้าอยู่มีแบบ significant other ใช่ไหมอยู่ก็สามารถถ้าอยู่ไม่กลับบ้านอยู่ก็บินเขามาหาได้ so that's like a very good perk second question on opportunities to move to other offices yes there is that opportunity and at McKinsey อย่างเงี้ย you can actually either move permanently or you do a mobility rotation for like 6 months or a year อันนี้ก็คือแล้วแต่อยู่ so there are those opportunities as well
พี่มุกล่ะครับได้ travel มั้งไหมครับ
ก็จริงๆแล้ว I think traveling is one of the beauty of consulting ก็คือถ้าสมมติว่ามีใครที่แบบอยากทำงานแบบอยากไปประเทศนู้นประเทศนี้ทำงานแบบต่างประเทศอะไรอย่างเงี้ย I think consulting is right for you in that sense ก็คือจริงๆแล้วเดี๋ยวก็คือจะเล่าให้ฟังคร่าวๆก็คือเหมือนโอเคถ้าเรา on project แล้วไม่ใช่ project ไทยสมมติ project มาเลสิ่งที่เราจะต้องทำก็คือปกติแล้วพี่จะบินแบบวันอาทิตย์เย็นหรือว่าวันจันทร์เช้า and then a day in the life would be ก็คือ spend time in Malay for ประมาณ 4-5 วันก็คือส่วนมากคอนซัลท์ทุกคนจะบินกับพฤหัสเย็นหรือว่าวันศุกร์เย็นเราก็ repeat ก็คือทุกคนมันจะกลับแบบพฤหัสเย็นหรือศุกร์เย็นแล้วก็บินมาใหม่วันจันทร์หรือวันอาทิตย์เย็นก็คือมันก็จะเป็นอย่างเงี้ย repeat ไปเรื่อยๆ2 เดือน 3 เดือนแล้วแต่ project จนกว่า project จะจบ so this means that like if you like traveling then you get to travel every week and stay in like a 5-star hotel สึกว่าจริงๆแล้วแบบที่พี่เอิญพูดเลยว่าถ้าเราไม่กลับอย่างเงี้ยเราก็fly family มาได้ fly คนอื่นมาได้มาแบบมาเที่ยวเสาร์อาทิตย์อะไรเงี้ย it all covers in your case budget
โอเคครับมีคำถามมานอกรอบถามว่า does your firm sponsor masters and when are you eligible to be sponsored
โอเคอันนี้พี่เทคก่อนแล้วกันแต่ว่าอันเนี้ยพี่รู้สึกว่า yes they actually sponsored masters คือพี่ว่าพี่ไม่อันนี้คือพี่ไม่รู้นะเพราะพี่ join as a experience hire แล้วแต่ว่า usually ถ้า McKinsey you join as a BA หรือแบบ CA อะไรเงี้ยBA คือ business analyst CA คือ consulting analyst อย่างเงี้ย then if you're homegrown from that stage they will sponsor you I'm not sure like which programs are in there of course MBA is there but I think they have a list of like where you can apply to and they'll sponsor so yes they'll sponsor but also depends on whether on like which level you join as well อย่างพี่ join as an experienced hire so I'm not sponsored
แล้วพี่มุกล่ะครับพอรู้มาที่ BCG เป็นยังไง
I think for BCG ก็คือ yes they sponsor แต่ว่าก็คือมีข้อแม้ว่าเราน่าจะต้องทำงาน1 ปี at least if you join as like the lowest level which is the associate right ก็คืออยู่ทำงาน1 ปีปุ๊บอยู่สามารถ apply ก็คือ as long as you apply and ติด the school right they sponsor you and then what happens if is that like youไปเรียนแล้วทีนี้มันเป็นใช้ทุนแบบ1 ต่อ 1ก็คือถ้าสมมติว่าอยู่เรียน1 ปีอยู่ต้องกลับมาทำงานที่ BCG ต่ออีก1 ปีแต่ถ้าอยู่เรียน2 ปีอยู่ก็กลับมาทำงานที่นี่ต่อ2 ปี and that's it which I think is pretty good
โอเคครับเวลาของเซสชันนี้ก็กำลังจะหมดแล้วนะครับก็อยากรู้ว่าพี่ๆมี final thoughts อะไรให้น้องๆใน audience ไหมครับไม่ว่าอาจจะไม่เกี่ยวกับ consulting ก็ได้อาจจะเป็น life advice หรือว่าเป็น university advice ก็ได้อยากคนละอันเลยนะครับพี่เอิญหรืออะไรครับคิดกันแล้วนะครับไม่
เป็นไรพี่ค่อนข้างคิดว่า look you guys are still young so please enjoy life travel a lot because like when you actually work it will take a lot of your time so justพี่ว่าแบบ just enjoy university life have a good time try to learn about things that you're really interested in don't be too fixated and too worried about jobs like you got into Imperial or IOC you're gonna do just fine in life whatever you do so แบบไม่ต้อง serious มาก hopefully like just have learn a lot and try to like do things that you really wanna do and if you're interested in consulting and want to join this myth making industry then you just reach out to me and Muk and I think yeah that's พี่ทิ้งท้ายตามนี้แล้วกัน
โอเคครับพี่มุกล่ะครับ
แต่สำหรับพี่ก็คือ again จริงๆก็คือ enjoy life ในยูนี้เพราะว่าเหมือนแบบไปเที่ยว spend time ถ้าสมมติว่าปิดเทอมอะไรอย่างเงี้ยแบบก่อนเริ่ม intern หรือว่าจริงๆแล้วอยู่แบบไม่ได้ทำ intern ก็แบบไปเที่ยวไป explore แบบสิ่งที่อยู่อยากทำแบบไปเที่ยวในสิ่งที่อยู่อยากไปเพราะว่าจริงๆแล้วพออยู่ทำงานแบบมันจะหาเวลาไปเที่ยวยากมากๆแบบมันเพราะว่าแบบจริงๆแล้วในทำงานไม่ใช่แค่ consulting อ่ะแบบอยู่จะหาวันลายากเพราะว่าแบบอยู่ก็ต้องลาอย่างนู้นอย่างนี้ใช่ไหม so อยู่จะได้ไปเที่ยวแบบยากมากๆ so ก็ enjoy life ไปเที่ยวเพราะว่าแบบไม่ต้องแบบเหมือนบอกว่าเดี๋ยวรอจบปี4ก่อนอะไรอย่างนี้ใช่ไหมแล้วเราค่อยไปอะไรเงี้ยเหมือนตอนนั้นพี่ก็รอจบปี4แล้วสรุปโควิด hits พี่ก็ไม่ได้ไปไหนเลยกับไทยแล้วก็เริ่มทำงานเลย so ไม่ต้องรีบที่จะแบบหางานหรือว่าจริงๆแล้วก็ไม่ต้องซีเรียสว่าอยู่ต้องจบแล้วอยู่ต้องแบบมีงานทำเลย you can spend like half a year traveling around like Europe or the US right ที่ก่อนที่อยู่จะเริ่มงานก็ได้เพราะ once อยู่เริ่มงานแล้วมันแบบมันลายากจริงๆAnd then yes, if you wanna come to consulting, you can, reach out to me or Pierre and then do your case interview. สำคัญมาก
โอเคครับก็คือที่เที่ยวเวคือไปใช้ชีวิตซะก่อนที่จะเริ่มทำงานโอเคครับก็ต้องขอบคุณพี่เอิญกับพี่มุกมากๆเลยนะครับที่เสียสละเวลามาพูดคุยกับออเดียนซ์ในวันนี้นะครับก็เชื่อว่าน้องๆหลายๆคนเนี่ยก็ได้รับความรู้แล้วก็อินสปิเรชันจากพี่ๆไปเยอะเลยนะครับแล้วก็ขอบคุณสปีกเกอร์คนอื่นด้วยนะครับไม่แน่ใจว่ายังอยู่หรือเปล่าแล้วก็ขอบคุณทุกคนนะครับที่เข้ามาฟังในวันนี้จากพี่ๆนะครับโอเคเซสชั่นวันนี้นะครับก็จบลงแล้วนะครับแล้วก็สำหรับออเดียนซ์นะครับถ้าเกิดว่าชอบอีเวนต์แบบนี้แล้วก็อยากเข้าอีเวนต์แบบนี้อีกนะครับก็สามารถมาติดตาม TSIN ได้นะครับหรือว่าทาง TSIN Innovation Network นะครับแล้วก็จัดอีเวนต์สไตล์นี้นะครับไปเรื่อยๆเป็นอีเวนต์ให้ความรู้เรื่อง career นะครับก็สามารถติดตามได้ IG ของเรานะครับก็สแกนตรง QR อันนี้ได้เลยนะครับแล้วก็ถ้าเกิดว่าออเดียนคนไหนนะครับอยากรับรู้ข่าวสารจาก TSIN เพิ่มเติมนะครับแล้วก็อยากโดนเชิญไป Exclusive Event ของเราไม่ว่าจะเป็นการไปทานข้าวกับพี่ๆสปีกเกอร์บางคนนะครับก็สามารถมาจอย TSIN Circle ของเราได้ซึ่งก็ลิงก์เดียวกันนะครับแล้วก็ถ้าพี่มุกกับพี่เอิญอยากทานข้าวกับออเดียนก็สามารถบอกมาได้เหมือนกันนะครับเดี๋ยวจะจัดอีเวนต์ให้นะครับโอเคนอกจากนี้นะครับก็สำหรับน้องๆในออเดียนนะครับที่อยู่ Imperial LSE หรือมหาลัยไหนก็ตามในอังกฤษนะครับถ้าเกิดว่าอยากมาร่วมทำงานกับTSINแล้วก็ร่วมสร้าง Impact ไปด้วยกัน Impact กับ Career ของเด็กไทยในอังกฤษไปด้วยกันนะครับก็สามารถสมัครมาได้ทางลิงก์เดียวกันนะครับใน QR บนหัวผมตรงนี้นะครับโอเคก็ประมาณนี้นะครับสำหรับเซสชั่นของวันนี้ก็ต้องขอบคุณทุกคนอีกทีนะครับที่มาจอยกันแล้วก็ต้องขอจบงานนี้ในวันนี้แล้วนะครับโอเคครับคุณนายครับทุกคนสวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
ขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณมากๆครับ
ขอบคุณครับ